Chapter 1087. Beneath his feet was the boundless red soil continent. His ears were filled with dead silence. There was not a single sound of wind. The sky was made up of countless specks of light that gathered together to form a vast and boundless starry sky. It had been 3 days since Ning Fan's primordial spirit rushed into this strange place. This strange place was the world inside the mouth of the gigantic human head. His physical body was restrained by the golden hoop. He could not move, and was left in the outside world. His primordial spirit rushed into this strange place alone, intending to bring Tu Huang, or the sword ancestor, back from this place. For this trip, Ning Fan's primordial spirit brought the god-exterminating shield, and the storage pouch. However, he did not bring the yin-yang locket with him. Instead, he left it inside his dantian. He did not know if he could bring Tu Huang back. He did not know if he could survive this trip and return to his hometown. If he fails this trip and dies here, he could not let the countless human cauldrons in the profound Yin world perish together with him. At the moment he entered this strange place, he even tried to slightly suppress the connection between life and death of the enslavement and other restrictions. In this way, even if he dies, he would not cause any fatal harm to Zhongyu, Old Wu Ba and the others. That's right, he charged into this strange place with the awareness of death in his heart. Because this strange place gave him a sense of danger. He did not even have a 1/10000000th chance of surviving. Entering this place was definitely the most unwise decision he had ever made in his life. However, even if there was only a tiny chance, he still wanted to give it a try. He was not willing to watch Tu Huang disappear right in front of him. Even though he had already slept with Tu Huang, it was not a reason for him to lose control over his madness for the sake of Tu Huang. As a matter of fact, even if an ordinary human cauldron encountered such an encounter, Ning Fan would definitely save him at all costs given his stubbornness. Even though the outcome would be the same, if it was just an ordinary woman, he would not have such crazy emotions burning in his chest. I don't understand. I don't understand at this moment. Ning Fan could not understand his own heart. He had countless women around him. If he were to talk about the one he had the deepest feelings for, it would definitely be his first woman, Jihe. It wasn't that other women weren't good. It was just that his relationship with Jihe was insignificant. It was due to poverty, and it was the first relationship he had in his life. He treasured it the most, so there was a kind of importance that others couldn't compare with. Mu Weiliang, Su Qiuling, Luoyu. There were many other women whom he valued as much as his life. He wasn't a good man, he wasn't even a good person. However, this was the first time he realized that there was a woman in this world who held a different meaning to him compared to other women. That difference had nothing to do with his feelings. His feelings for Tu Huang were far from being the strongest among all the women. What Tu Huang gave him was an indescribable feeling. It was a kind of intimacy that came out of nowhere. It was a kind of gratitude that came from the bottom of his heart. It was a debt that could not be repaid even after countless reincarnations. That's right, I owe him. At this moment, Ning Fan finally understood the reason why Sovereign Slaughter gave him the most special feeling. Emperor Tu was definitely not the person he had the deepest feelings for. But it was probably the woman that he owed the most in his previous life. I have a feeling that I owed her a lot in my previous life. I owed her a lot. It was so much that even after going through countless reincarnations, I still can't let go of this matter in the depths of my soul. When I saw the remains of the sword ancestor disappearing in front of me at the corpse mountain, I was powerless to stop it. I actually had a feeling that my heart was like dead ashes. It's really unimaginable. This time, when I saw Sovereign Slaughter disappearing, I actually wished that I could turn the entire world upside down. This kind of crazy thought seems to be born in my heart on the surface. But perhaps it's not. Perhaps it's the crazy emotion that remained in the depths of my soul when I flew out of the butterfly's hometown. Sovereign Slaughter is the sword ancestor. The sword ancestor had already passed away countless years ago. The sword ancestor's utmost emotion that formed Sovereign Slaughter's body is the last trace of the sword ancestor's imprint in this world. What is that light spot that was swallowed by the gigantic human head? The mysterious sage who stopped me said that I was interfering with the return of the sword ancestor's Tao orthodoxy. What is a Tao orthodoxy? Ning Fan's primordial spirit carried the god-exterminating shield, and flew close to the dark red continent. He did not dare to fly too high as he was afraid that he would come into contact with the stars in the sky. The stars in this strange place carried unfathomable might at every moment. Previously, he accidentally got close to one of them. As a result, one of the stars released a ray of destructive starlight at a certain moment. It even created a hole in his God-exterminating shield. His primordial spirit was even penetrated by that ray of starlight, leaving him with severe injuries that left him on the verge of death. Moreover, if he recklessly uses his spirit sense in this place, he would certainly trigger the attacks of the mysterious stars. After that, Ning Fan consumed a large amount of pills to suppress his injuries. However, he could only barely suppress them. It was impossible for his injuries to recover at all. His wounds seemed to be constantly torn open by a force that he could not understand. It was his first time encountering such a force. Later on, he searched blindly in this place for 3 days. Because he could not spread his spirit sense across a large area, he could not find the light spot that sovereign slaughter had scattered into heaven and earth at all. The pattern of heaven and earth in this place was constantly changing. From the moment he entered this place, he could no longer find the way back. On the 4th day, Ning Fan still could not find sovereign slaughter. His primordial spirit and blood essence began to evaporate in this strange place. He felt excruciating pain every second. On the 5th day, his primordial spirit had already shrunk by a large margin. It was only half of its original size. His chi was extremely weak. However, he still stubbornly continued to search in this place. On the 6th day, Ning Fan's primordial spirit finally could not hold on any longer. He fainted on the ground. The God-exterminating shield and his storage pouch also fell on the red soil. The 7th day, the 8th day, the 9th day, Ning Fan never woke up again. His primordial spirit and blood essence were completely evaporated. His primordial spirit that had shrunk to its limit eventually turned into steam and dissipated in this strange place, returning to nothingness. It's only been 9 days and you're already dead? If you can't hold on for 22 days, I won't be able to help you even if I want to. After all, the illusionary world that you're in is too far away from me. It's too far away. I need time to connect the two worlds with my sense. In the boundless starry sky, Sage Kaiwei sighed regretfully. Her voice seemed to come from an extremely distant place. On the 10th day, on the 11th day, the storage pouch that was lying quietly on the ground suddenly shot out a ray of moonlight. At the moment when the moonlight appeared, the time power in the surrounding space strangely flowed in reverse. Prajna Paramitha. It was the incantation that Ning Fan had placed in the storage pouch in advance. As time flowed in reverse, Ning Fan's fallen primordial spirit actually recovered and reconstructed itself bit by bit. In the end, Ning Fan, who was supposed to die on the 9th day, was resurrected on the 11th day. That was close. If I didn't call out the Moonlight Treasure Box's true name before attacking the sacred mountain, I would most likely have died in this strange place. Ning Fan said with lingering fear. His fear towards this strange place had risen to an unprecedented level. His primordial spirit waved its small hand and kept the storage pouch and the God-exterminating shield into its embrace. It tied the small shield to his chest, making it look like a slightly protruding breastplate. The storage pouch was carried on his back. Then he took out the Moonlight Treasure Box from the storage pouch and studied it carefully. He realized that a quarter of the saints' will inside the treasure box had actually been used up because of his resurrection. In other words, the remaining will of the saint was only enough for him to die 3 times in this place. The so-called Moonlight Treasure Box was actually the Pig-Faced Treasure Box's true name. When Ning Fan awakened his innate talent of communicating with all living things, he heard this true name from the treasure box. It was quite magical. Before knowing the true name of the Moonlight Treasure Box, the steps to use it were extremely complicated. One must first set a mark in a certain area before it could be used. When Ning Fan learned the true name of the Moonlight Treasure Box and used it, he actually had a strange feeling of becoming one with the box. When he used it again, he could use it at any time and place even if there was no mark in advance. Besides, there were no restrictions such as the number of times it could be used, the cooldown time and so on. Since then, the Moonlight Treasure Box had 2 completely different ways of using it. It could be used as a mark in its normal state, and as a non-mark in its true name. When using it without a mark, there were 3 things to note. Firstly, it could only allow Ning Fan, the owner of the treasure box, to go back in time alone. It couldn't change the time of everyone around him like when he used the mark. In other words, Ning Fan could be resurrected by reversing the flow of time without a mark, but others couldn't. They could only do it if they were marked in advance. Secondly, when it was used without a mark, the consumption of the saints will in the Moonlight treasure box was huge. If the level of the attack that caused death was too high, the consumption would be even higher. Thirdly, when it was used without a mark, there would be a certain delay. It could be 1 to 4 hours or 1 to 2 days. The delay was not fixed according to the surrounding environment and the cause of death. This was also the reason why Ning Fan was only revived by the Moonlight treasure box after a delay of 2 days. Oh, you actually came back to life with the Moonlight treasure box of the Extreme Sacred Sect? I thought you had already died here. It seems like I have underestimated you. Saint Kaiwei's voice carried a hint of surprise. Her voice reverberated across heaven and earth. Ning Fan's primordial spirit was stunned. He kept the Moonlight treasure box into his storage pouch, and carefully spread his spirit sense across the area. Because the coverage of his spirit sense was too shallow, he naturally could not find the hiding place of the speaker. Retract your spirit sense. Don't spread it beyond Tenjong. It was Kaiwei's friendly reminder. Ning Fan was instantly surprised. Judging from the voice, the person who was reminding him was obviously the mysterious saint who stopped him from using the Fu Li spiritual wheel to gather the remnant soul of Sovereign Slayer. Why did this person kindly remind him? Is he really doing it out of kindness, or is he plotting something else? Ning Fan had experienced too many schemes and schemes. Facing a mysterious saint of unknown origin, he was naturally extremely cautious. Even though he was cautious, he still acted according to the advice. He retracted his spirit sense to around Tenjong, and did not continue to search for the whereabouts of this mysterious saint. After all, he could also see that it was not advisable to spread out his spirit sense too much in this place. This place is the underworld earth. It's the place where all the supreme beings who once possessed the Tao orthodoxy of heaven and earth returned to after their deaths. Each of the stars was formed by the extremely powerful beings among the saints after their deaths. Moreover, some of the stars in this place were formed by fourth-step immortal sovereigns. Don't go near those stars. Even though you have one of the fragments of the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country, you are still just an insignificant ant in front of those stars. You need to be respectful. Underworld Earth? It was Ning Fan's first time hearing this term. He could not help but feel moved. In this place you can't tell others your name. Otherwise, even the strongest desolate saint among the saints won't be able to leave this place. You will be trapped by the wall of the underworld earth forever. If you want to find someone, you can't call out that name. Otherwise, you will never be able to find that person. Remember. Names are things that transcend reality and illusion. They are the root of the existence of the cultivators in the eyes of the underworld earth. You might not understand it, but you can't go against it. Saint Kaiwei continued. I can't simply call out names in this place? Ning Fan did not doubt the authenticity of Saint Kaiwei's words. After all, she did not seem to have any reason to lie to him about such things. Inwardly, he felt a little lucky that he did not say a word or call out loudly while searching for Tu Huang in the underworld earth. If he accidentally called out the names of Tu Huang and Sword Ancestor, it would be really troublesome. Thank you for your advice, Senior. Ning Fan was still vigilant, but he still thanked her at the boundless starry sky. You don't have to thank me. I'm not helping you. I'm just fulfilling my own karma. Everything you see in the layout of the underworld earth is illusory. If it's not for desolate sage, you will never find the end of this place if you walk in it. I can't give you directions because the layout of the underworld earth in everyone's eyes is different. However, I can give you some pointers. The layout of heaven and earth in the underworld earth is numeric 9. 9 system? Ning Fan was surprised. Then the small face of his primordial spirit turned serious. His eyes sparkled with green light. When he looked at this world using the 9 system, he immediately felt different. He silently activated the Force character. Ning Fan did not need Saint Kaiwei to continue reminding him. After identifying a direction, he turned left and right, and continued moving forward at full speed. The 12th day, the 13th day, the 14th day, the 20th day. Ning Fan's primordial spirit could not endure it anymore and fell once again. On the 22nd day, he was resurrected for the second time with the help of the Moonlight Treasure Box. The remaining saints will is still enough for me to resurrect twice in this place. The level of this place is too high. Using the Moonlight Treasure Box to resurrect me will consume too much of my energy. Ning Fan's heart was extremely heavy as he continued moving forward. On the 25th day, in the boundless underworld earth in front of him, a strange fragrance suddenly entered his nose. He did not know what the source of that fragrance was. With just a sniff, Ning Fan's weak and shrunken primordial spirit directly returned to its normal size. His chi was full and he no longer felt weak. His spirit was lifted and he continued moving forward. The further he went, the stronger the strange fragrance became. On the 28th day, a 10,000 zhang tall ancient tree appeared in front of him. The ancient tree was filled with fruits in the shape of babies. Countless specks of light condensed into fireflies which parasitized the 10,000 zhang tall ancient tree. Under the ancient tree, a saint in Taoist robes stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He did not have a physical body but a phantom that was condensed from the power of his primordial spirit. When Ning Fan arrived, the saint turned around with a hint of surprise in his eyes. Impressive. I have only given you a few pointers, but you actually managed to reach this place with your comprehension of the great momentum. In terms of bloodline and qualifications, you might be the weakest among all the cultivators in this world. However, in terms of techniques, even among the outstanding ancient immortal venerables, not many of them could do this. Junior Ning. Junior greets Senior. Thank you for your guidance, Senior. Ning Fan could not hide the excitement on his face. After arriving at this ancient tree, he could clearly sense that among the countless fireflies parasitized on the ancient tree, there was one whose chi was similar to that of Slaughter Sovereign and the Sword Ancestor. Finally, I found it. Because he was too excited, he actually forgot about Sage Kaiwei's reminder and nearly blurted out his true name. Fortunately, he noticed it in time and stopped talking. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable. Sage Kaiwei praised Ning Fan and no longer said anything else. In her opinion, even though Ning Fan was an outstanding ancient immortal venerables, that was all there was to him. Even though she praised him, it was far from shocking. After all, there were as many ancient immortal venerables like Ning Fan in the true world as there were stars in the sky. I've heard of you, the boundless butterfly. In the past, that person in the Purple Mountain Dosi personally came forward and asked the people of the Sage sect to give a group of Purple Dipper immortal cultivators a chance to reincarnate. However, there was actually a mortal butterfly among them who had no cultivation base at all. The entire three worlds was shocked. Some people even speculated that the 10 ancient spirits of the Purple Dipper immortal region were not the backup plan of that lord, but you and that group of Purple Dipper immortal cultivators. However, in the end, none of you walked out of the illusory world's reincarnation and returned to the true world. Only then did everyone realize that they had overestimated the cultivation base of the Purple Dipper immortal cultivators, who entered the illusory world's reincarnation. Ning Fan remained silent. He was not interested in such secrets. Do you know how reckless you were? You barged into the underworld earth with just a cultivation base at the second step. Even though you have the fragment of the god-exterminating shield of the ancient country, and the Moonlight Treasure Box of the Extreme In Sacred Sect, your cultivation base is still too weak. This is a situation where you will definitely die. If I get involved in this matter, your soul will definitely perish in the underworld earth. Is that woman an important existence that you want to find even if you have to sacrifice your soul? Sage Kaiwei sighed. I don't know if she is important to me or not. Coming here to find her is a kind of instinct. It's a kind of repayment. Ning Fan said calmly. That kind of calmness was because he owed the Sword Ancestor too much in his previous and current lives. If he really could not save her, he would have an instinct that made him willingly die in this boundless underworld earth with the Sword Ancestor. Repayment? How do you plan to repay her and leave this place with her remnant soul? Yes. Do you know that she had already died in the past in order to protect your reincarnation? Today, the orthodoxy that was returned to the underworld earth only contains an extremely small trace of her soul. If the soul power of an entire soul is 1,000,000 units, the souls that you have absorbed today are not even 10 units. Besides, even if it's 10 units of souls, the underworld earth won't allow you to take all of them away. Even if I help you to deceive the heavens, you can only take away 1,000th of the souls from these 10 units at most. Such a small number of souls is almost useless. In order to take away such a large number of souls, the price you have to pay might be your life. Ning Fan remained calm as if he did not hear what Sage Kaiwei said. He was looking at one of the countless fireflies on the ancient tree. The number of souls that you can take away is too little. Besides, you can't even take a trace of the most important orthodoxy. What do you want to do by taking away so few souls? Resurrect her? Not to mention that you have only cultivated the first wheel of the 5 spirit wheels. Even if you cultivate the legendary 4th wheel, you won't be able to do this because her soul is already incomplete. Ning Fan remained silent. Judging from what Sage Kaiwei said, even if he takes away Tu Huang's soul today, he would not be able to resurrect her. However, if he does not give it a try, he would not be satisfied. I'm not saying this to stop you from doing what you want to do. I just want you to be mentally prepared. As a sage, I can see the destinies and fortunes of all second-step cultivators. Your destiny and hers do not intersect. Unless you are stronger than the destinies and fortunes, you won't be able to change this. Ning Fan remained silent. Sage Kaiwei looked at Ning Fan deeply, as if she was getting to know him again. Then she praised him. What a determined little fellow. This old man's words can't even make you waver a little? Yes. What do you plan to do next? I'll try to see if I can take away the fireflies that are the remnants of her soul. Take away the whole one? I've already told you. You can only take away 1,000th of it. Forget it. You are too stubborn. Anyway, the power of your treasure box is still enough for you to be resurrected twice. If you don't realize how difficult this matter is, you won't turn back. Just as Sage Kaiwei's sigh fell, Ning Fan had already turned into a shadow and dashed towards the ancient tree. He leaped and soared into the sky, trying to take the firefly that was the remnant soul of Tu Huang into his hand. At this moment, the entire ancient tree suddenly emitted a boundless aura. Then, the entire great emperor of the underworld earth turned into an unbelievable scene in Ning Fan's eyes. The boundless dark red continent turned into a boundless giant palm, and clenched it fiercely. Ning Fan's vision turned black. Before he could even touch the firefly, he was already killed by the giant palm that was the entire underworld earth. That was a strike that surpassed the 3rd step immortal emperors. It was a strike that surpassed most 4th step immortal emperors. Killing Ning Fan was like killing an ant. After that strike, the entire underworld earth returned to its original state. Sage Kaiwei and the ancient tree were still at their original spots, as if they had never moved at all. It was as if the clenching of the entire continent was just an illusion that did not affect these existences at all. On the 30th day, Ning Fan was resurrected under the moonlight. The remaining will of the treasure box was only enough for him to be resurrected one last time. The expression on Ning Fan's primordial spirit's face was extremely unpleasant. He was unwilling to admit it, but he had to admit that the current him could not take away all the remnant souls of Tu Huang that he had absorbed earlier. No, he could not even take away 1,000th of them. After the Saint Realm, there are 3 great cultivation realms: Incipient Saint, Nirvana Saint, and Desolate Saint. I'm a Desolate Saint, and I'm one of the top experts among the Desolate Saints. However, even if I use all my strength, I can only help you take away a few remnant souls. Besides, after this matter, I will be heavily punished. As for you, you won't be able to do it at all. This isn't something that can be solved by courage and fighting spirit. I hope you can recognize the reality. Sage Kaiwei sighed. This matter will even implicate Senior? Why does Senior want to help me? Ning Fan's expression became complicated. If he were to take away a trace of Tu Huang's soul, he would need Kaiwei's power. If this matter might even bring Sage Kai Wei punishment, Ningfan had no choice but to consider Kai Wei's standpoint. He could give up his life for Tu Huang, but he was not willing to get involved in other people's karma. I've already said that I'm not helping you. Instead, I'm ending my own karma. It's the choice I made in order to advance to the fourth step in the future. It's difficult for existences like me to help others for friendship and recognition. Everything is for benefits. You don't owe me anything and you don't have to feel that you owe me anything. Of course, don't expect me to make a greater sacrifice for you. Junior understands senior's meaning. Then, what should I do next to take away a trace of her soul? Next, I will fight against the entire underworld earth with the power of my primordial spirit. You will protect me. Don't be afraid of getting hurt. Within the range of the fragrance of this divine tree of underworld earth, any injuries at the second step can be healed instantly. You can fight with your life on the line. As she said that, Kai Wei's expression turned solemn. Both of her hands moved rapidly, leaving afterimages. In an instant, she made thousands of hand seals. All of a sudden, the entire underworld earth shook violently. Millions of ancient phantoms floated out from the ground. All of them were wearing ancient clothes. Each of them had a powerful qi. The weakest among them was at the second step, while there were hundreds of immortal emperors. Among them, there was no lack of quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators. Be careful. The first batch of phantoms of the underworld earth is left behind by the disciples of the saints of those orthodoxies after they return to their positions. They are immortal and indestructible. I must fight against the nether star in this place. I can't afford to be distracted. You will deal with these phantoms. Remember not to let these phantoms get close to me and affect my actions. Otherwise, I can only apologize to you. I can no longer help you take away a trace of her soul. I can only leave now. Chapter 1088. Ningfan's heart skipped a beat. Currently, he was just in his primordial spirit form. His combat power was definitely not at his peak. What he had to do was to protect Kai Wei and resist the ancient existences that numbered more than 10 million, which included a large number of immortal emperors, quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators. It was a nearly impossible task, but Ningfan had no other choice. He could only brace himself and face it. Either he gave up on taking away the trace of Tu Huang's soul, or he used everything he had to stop the ancient existences of the underworld from interfering with Kai Wei. As soon as Kai Wei finished speaking, she sat cross-legged on the ground and closed her eyes. At the same time, a mass of saints will spread out from her body and soared into the sky, clashing against the vast and boundless star sea will. All of a sudden, the entire underworld seemed to be divided into two. Half of the star river was controlled by the underworld earth while the other half was controlled by Kai Wei. Each of the stars in this place was formed by the experts who once possessed a Tao orthodoxy after they died. They were the proof of the immortality of powerful existences. The wills that were left behind until now could be said to be vast and boundless. Kai Wei was a desolate saint among the saints. However, she was still not strong enough to control half of the star river of the underworld earth. It was an act of overestimating herself. It was equivalent to fighting the wills of thousands of saints of Tao orthodoxy with her own strength. It was also a nearly impossible task. It was a battle between heaven and man. It was a clash of wills. The process was silent, and there were no complicated techniques involved. It gave people a sense of tranquility. However, under this tranquility, there was an unimaginable danger. Kai Wei had only clashed once with the starry sky will, and 90% of her primordial spirit had already collapsed. She almost died. Fortunately, there was still 10% of her primordial spirit that had yet to collapse. The place where she sat was right below the underworld earth divine tree. Under the healing effect of the tree's fragrance, Kai Wei's severe injuries were healed in an instant. Her primordial spirit was restored to its original state. Then he exerted all his will again, and fought against the star will that filled the starry sky. Without the protection of the underworld earth divine tree, Kai Wei did not have the confidence to fight against the underworld earth divine tree. However, at this moment, she had a trace of confidence. Every time she was on the verge of death, every time she recovered, every time she resisted, every time her wills clashed. The tremendous chi that came from the clash of wills made Ningfan excited. A battle of wills at this level was 10,000 times more dangerous than a battle of magical techniques. It was definitely something Ningfan had never seen in his life. If it were him, facing the encirclement of the will of the saints in the sky, he would probably be wiped out in a single move. It was impossible for him to be like Kai Weisheng, who was lucky enough to preserve 10% of her primordial spirit and use the underworld earth divine tree to heal her injuries. Kai Weisheng shouldered the greatest risk on her own shoulders, leaving Ningfan with only an insignificant part of it. Ningfan felt a trace of gratitude towards this unknown and mysterious sage. Perhaps the other party was just fighting for the sake of his own karma. However, it still gave Ningfan a chance to rescue the others from the underworld earth. This was an opportunity that Ningfan could not obtain with his own strength. Even if there were tens of millions of ancient existences obstructing him, he couldn't let this chance slip by. If you want to seize the netherworld earth soul, kill without mercy. There were over 10 million ancient existences, so it was naturally impossible for all of them to attack in this small space. Moreover, because they were wary of Kai Weisheng, the most powerful group of people did not show their faces first, and instead hid behind to observe. The group that was the first to charge at Kai Weisheng was just a small group of people at the front. They were like a suicide squad. There were only a few hundred of them. Most of them were Life Immortal Realm and True Immortal Realm experts. The leader of the group was a young immortal venerate who had experienced an eternal tribulation. His body was originally illusory, and he was wearing an illusory armor. In addition to his skinny body, he gave people a feeling that he was too weak to withstand a gust of wind. It was as if a gentle breeze could blow this young immortal venerate away. However, when Ningfan stood in front of this group of people and exchanged blows with this young immortal venerate, he immediately felt the terror of this young immortal venerate. Those ancient illusory figures of Life Immortal Realm and True Immortal Realm experts were easily turned into ashes by Ningfan's wind and fire palm leaf fan. From each of their bodies, a ray of fiery light floated out and flew back to the underground of the underworld earth. However, this young immortal venerate who was the leader had withstood all the attacks of the wind and fire palm leaf fan with his illusory armor, and remained unscathed. This was not something that most doomsday immortal venerates could do. After dispersing the flames and smoke that filled the sky, this person landed a punch on the god-exterminating shield in front of Ningfan's primordial spirit. It was because there was already a hole on the god-exterminating shield that had yet to be repaired. That fist force penetrated a part of the shield and directly hit Ningfan's primordial spirit. Being caught off guard, Ningfan let out a muffled groan and retreated while coughing out blood. His primordial spirit's face was still as calm as an ancient well, but his heart was shaken. The other party was clearly just an ancient one-tribulation celestial venerable, but the might of a casual punch was actually more powerful than many celestial kings from the Age of Chaos. This was the power of an ancient celestial venerable. Along the way, people would address him with this title from time to time. However, only now did he realize how powerful this title was. Ancient Immortal Venerables and Doomsday Immortal Venerables were two completely different existences. He had swept through all the Immortal Venerables and Immortal Kings from the end of days with his Immortal Venerable cultivation, but this wasn't something worth boasting about at all. This was because eternal immortal sovereigns of this level could be found everywhere in ancient times. It wasn't that the ancient immortal venerables were too strong, but that the immortal venerables of the end of days were too weak. If you want to seize the netherworld earth soul, kill without mercy. After sending Ningfan's primordial spirit flying with a single strike, the young immortal venerable charged at him with a cold expression again. He was not a living person. Instead, he was a phantom that was deduced by the power of the netherworld earth after he died here. The coldness in his expression was actually the killing intent he had when he was alive. Even though that kind of killing intent was not as strong as Ningfan's, it was much scarier than many doomsday immortal kings. One could imagine that this young immortal venerable was definitely a peerless figure when he was alive. Ningfan forcefully stabilized his retreat. With the help of the unique fragrance of the netherworld divine tree, his injuries were instantly healed. His primordial spirit performed a hand seal, and innate magic treasures flew out one after another from the storage pouch he carried on his back. The battle intent in his eyes did not diminish. Even though he was shocked by the strength of an ancient immortal venerable, he was not afraid at all. It was because he had a reason that he could not retreat at this moment. Not to mention an ancient immortal venerable, even ancient immortal kings, ancient immortal emperors, ancient quasi-saints and ancient grand cultivators would not be able to pass through his defense. Rumble.it was the divine lightning mirror that shot out a purple lightning bolt at the young immortal venerable. However, the young immortal venerable caught the purple lightning bolt with both of his hands. His cold eyes were filled with disdain. Bang.it was the sneak attack of the Jiao Luo emperor, using the devil-subduing bead and the divine lightning mirror. It made the young immortal venerable, who thought that he had successfully defended himself, spurt out blood and fell to the sky. His illusory armor was slightly broken. Moreover, when the young immortal venerable lost control of his magic power, he was tightly tied up by the lightning prison rope. The young immortal venerable was shocked. Before he could react to the situation in front of him, he was trapped in the center of the 24 poisonous banners in the blink of an eye. It was Ning Fan's 5 venom banner. As soon as he was trapped, Ning Fan immediately activated the power of the yin-yang poison technique to its maximum. The power of the yin-yang poison technique was used together with the 5 venom banner. In an instant, a small area of heaven and earth around the young immortal venerable was tainted with poison. The poison blended with the power of heaven and earth. It was extremely difficult to defend against. It could be said to be all-pervasive, turning the illusory armor of the young immortal venerable into a mere decoration. Under the billowing poisonous smoke, the young immortal venerable, who had his magic power sealed by the lightning prison rope, no longer had any strength to resist. He was melted by the poison power of the 5 venom banner, and turned into a pool of blood. After he died, a ray of light like a firefly flew out from the pool of blood, and entered the land of the netherworld. This scene would happen every time a phantom died. In order to kill this young immortal venerable in one fell swoop, Ning Fan had used 5 innate magic treasures in succession. It consumed a lot of his magic power, and he even suffered some injuries. Fortunately, this place was protected by the underworld earth divine tree. The magic power that he consumed would be replenished in an instant. The injuries that he suffered could be healed in an instant, giving Ning Fan the possibility of continuing the battle. Ning Fan had never heard of such a strange tree. Today was his first time encountering it. With this tree protecting him, wouldn't it mean that he would not have to worry about his magic power, injuries and other problems during a battle? At the same time, Ning Fan also discovered that this underworld earth divine tree seemed to only be able to heal the injuries of living people and restore their magic power. It could not provide any help to the lifeless phantoms of the netherworld. Otherwise, it would be much more difficult to kill this young immortal venerable. After Ning Fan killed 1,000 ancient phantoms, more phantoms immediately rushed over. Those weak life immortal realm and true immortal realm beings could not even get within 1,000 zhang of sacred Kaiwei before they were instantly killed by Ning Fan's innate magic treasures. Blood mist filled the sky. However, there were still a few ancient immortal venerables and immortal kings blocking the attacks of the innate magic treasures. They charged towards Ning Fan coldly. The oppressive feeling that they gave Ning Fan when they joined forces was not any weaker than a single 6th tribulation immortal emperor during the age of Dharma decline. After killing the young immortal venerable, Ning Fan was already rather fearful of these ancient immortal venerables and immortal kings. Even though he only had his primordial spirit in his body, he still summoned the Dharma image of the god-destroying giant. The giant held the god-destroying shield in his left hand, and the ocean-defying sword in his right. His body was surrounded by many innate magic treasures. As he let out a furious roar, the aura force of his divine spirit turned into waves of ripples that reverberated in the surroundings. It actually caused the strange Tao principles that filled the netherworld to be slightly disturbed. All of a sudden, the indifferent faces of the immortal venerables and immortal kings who were charging towards Ning Fan finally showed a hint of shock. It was not just these few people. At this moment, none of the millions of ancient phantoms that covered the sky were unafraid of Ning Fan's divine spirit aura force. That kind of fear had nothing to do with their cultivation base. It was an emotion that only ancient cultivators who had witnessed the terror of a divine spirit with their own eyes could feel. Unfortunately, the fear only lasted for a moment. After that, the eyes of these ancient phantoms turned blank. Then they locked their killing intent on Ning Fan again. The few ancient immortal venerables and immortal kings who were charging at the forefront displayed their abilities, trying to stop Kai Wei from doing what she wanted to do. However, all of their attacks were blocked by the God-destroying giant's giant shield. The God-destroying giant's baleful chi soared into the sky. He stood in front of Kai Wei to protect her like a deity, who had lived since ancient times. Even though the God-destroying shield in his hand had a ghastly hole, it did not diminish its might. Feeling the tremendous aura force of the God-destroying giant, all the ancient phantoms in the area wore a solemn expression. At first, there were only a few immortal venerables and immortal kings attacking Ning Fan at the same time. Then, more immortal venerables and immortal kings joined the fray. The eyes of the God-destroying giant were filled with monstrous killing intent. The numerous innate magic treasures that were hovering around him whizzed out. He would kill whoever that came at him. So what if they are ancient immortal venerables? So what if they are ancient immortal kings? If these ancient existences go to any other places in the underworld to cause trouble, he would not interfere. However, he would not allow anyone to trespass the 1,000 zhang of land around Kai Wei. After a few breaths, the God-destroying giant killed the 10 over immortal venerables and immortal kings who were attacking him. However, he also paid a price. Among his many innate magic treasures, one of them was shattered by a single punch from an ancient immortal king. It was the devil-subduing bead of the Jialuo Emperor. As the power of this bead was greatly damaged, he had no choice but to keep it away. Before it was repaired, it could not be used again. After one wave of enemies was killed, another wave of enemies would come. It was like an endless tide that could not be eliminated. The God-destroying giant guarded the 1,000 zhang of land, and became an unreasonable god of slaughter. Any ancient phantoms who tried to approach Kai Wei would be forcibly killed by him. After another 100 breaths, the number of ancient immortal venerables and immortal kings killed by the God-destroying giant had already exceeded 100. He had also killed 150 to 60,000 life immortals and true immortals. He had also paid a heavy price. A series of low-grade innate magic treasures were damaged to varying degrees. Before he repaired them, all of them could no longer be used. Gradually, even a Dao weapon like the sea-defying sword was snapped by an ancient immortal king's finger, turning into light and dissipating. Even the wondrous Seven Treasures tree's aura was greatly damaged due to the undying divine fire of an ancient immortal venerable. In the end, there was only one innate magic treasure left circling around the God-destroying giant. It was a clean bottle that emitted a salty sea breeze. It was a mid-grade innate magic treasure, the Flooding World Bottle. Because the primordial thunder cauldron was a treasure obtained in the Battle of the Sacred Mountain, it had yet to be unsealed. The power of the Eastern Mountain divine thunder within it was only a 10th or 20%, so it could not participate in the battle. At this time and place, the Flooding World Bottle was the strongest offensive magic treasure the God-destroying giant could use. Looking at the endless number of ancient phantoms that filled the sky, the God-destroying giant made a decision. He raised the Flooding World Bottle high up and at the same time, it released a divine light to protect Kai Wei and the underworld earth divine tree behind him. He wanted to flood the world and kill on a large scale. As soon as this treasure was activated, the starry sky in front of the ancient immortal venerables and ancient immortal kings was covered by endless waves in the sky, blocking their vision. Moments later, the raging waves poured down, wanting to drown the entire underworld earth. Such a terrifying attack caused the expressions of countless ancient phantoms to change. Don't panic. It's just a small trick. An ancient great cultivator standing the furthest snorted disdainfully. He raised his hand and pointed at the sky. The sea in the sky that was about to flood was actually torn apart with a bang. Countless water splashed everywhere, but when the water exploded, it sizzled and evaporated by the vast magic power of the ancient great cultivator. It turned into countless wisps of steam and flew back into the Flooding World Bottle. Then, A crack appeared on the flooding world bottle. From the beginning to the end, not a single drop of seawater could fall to the ground. The flooding world bottle can't be used in front of the ancient great cultivators. The god-destroying giant's heart sank. He put the weakened flooding world bottle back into his storage bag. It was wishful thinking to use magic treasures to stop these ancient existences. If magic treasures can't be used, then the god-destroying giant would use his fists to stop them and fight them. After all, not many of the ancient phantoms of the enemy used magic treasures. From this, it could be seen that in the values of ancient cultivators, magic treasures were just external objects while one's own body was the foundation. They believed in using their physical bodies to fight against heaven and earth, and using magic power to devour the sun and moon. The god-destroying giant hit his god-destroying shield. His empty fist swept across with essence chi. At this moment, he activated the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. A reckless ancient immortal venerable rushed towards the god-destroying giant recklessly. Then he was hit by the giant's punch, which drained all of his magic power. He was forced to retreat while coughing out blood. His eyes widened and he could not hide the shock and fear on his face. Then the god-destroying giant threw out the second, third and fourth punch without any regard for his magic power. The momentum of the 4 punches combined into one and directly killed that ancient immortal venerable. In terms of group attack, the flooding world bottle might have a wider range. However, in terms of single target damage, the ancient devil mountain breaking strike that was stacked with consecutive hits definitely had the potential to surpass the flooding world bottle and become Ningfan's strongest trump card. However, the prerequisite was that the number of consecutive hits had to reach a certain level. During the battle on the Holy Mountain, Ningfan needed to consume more than 1,009 revolution pills to be able to unleash 800 ancient devil mountain breaking strikes. Now, however, with the powerful recovery ability of the divine tree of underworld soil, Ningfan no longer had to worry about replenishing his magic power. It was not difficult for him to unleash 800 consecutive hits. Moreover, he could do it without suffering any injuries. It was the best time to use the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. He could even try to unleash 900 or 1,000 consecutive hits, or even more at this place. Today might be a battle that could not be replicated in his path of cultivation with the ancient devil mountain breaking strike. Today he wanted to use his fists to defend the 1,000 zhang of territory behind him. He wanted to defend the hope of taking away the remnant soul of the slaughtering sovereign. The 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th punches. Another ancient immortal venerable tried to sneak an attack on Kai Weisheng, but he was crushed by the god-destroying giant's iron fist. He turned into a firefly and went back into the ground. The 10th, the 20th, the 30th, the 40th punch. An ancient immortal king tried to step 1,000 zhang into Kai Weisheng's territory, but he was killed by the god-destroying giant's iron fist. The 100th, the 300th, the 500th, the 800th. The further it went, the more obvious the effect of the consecutive hits would be. The destructive power of the ancient devil mountain breaking strike would also become more terrifying. A single punch would certainly turn hundreds or thousands of life immortal realm and true immortal realm experts into nothingness. Be it ancient immortal venerables or ancient immortal kings, none of them could withstand the destructive power of the ancient devil mountain breaking strike after hundreds of consecutive hits. It was as if this punch could split the heavens, split the earth and annihilate all powerful beings. When the god-destroying giant reached the 800th consecutive hit, even peak 5th tribulation ancient immortal kings would be crushed by a single punch from the god-destroying giant. All of the ancient phantoms' eyes were filled with fear when they looked at the giant. Ordinary life immortal realm and true immortal realm phantoms no longer dared to attack the god-destroying giant by relying on their numbers. Doing so would only result in their deaths. The ancient phantoms whose cultivation bases were lower than 10,000 years old all turned into fireflies on their own, and flew back to the underground of the underworld soil. It was because it was pointless for them to stay here any longer. The number of people attacking the god-destroying giant had decreased sharply. However, those who remained until the end were the elites of the elites. They were powerful beings who were not afraid of Ningfan's 800 ancient devil mountain breaking strike. Finally, there was an ancient immortal emperor, who could no longer hold himself back, and rushed towards Ning Fan. It was an old man whose entire body was covered in flames. Even his hair and beard were made of flames. He had the cultivation base of the Six Tribulations' ancient immortal realm. He was clearly just the Six Tribulations' ancient immortal emperor. However, the sense of danger he gave Ning Fan was much stronger than that of a Seven Tribulation immortal emperor during the Dharma ending era. He was comparable to an Eight Tribulation immortal emperor during the Dharma ending era, and even slightly stronger than the Divine Void immortal emperors of the Godly Void Pavilion. Before entering the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, Ning Fan could only look up to an existence at such a level. However, at this moment, he had the confidence and strength to be on an equal footing with the other party. At this moment, the God-destroying giant's consecutive attacks had already been unleashed. It was not afraid of the immortal Emperor of Flames at all. The 801st punch, the ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike, was thrown out. In the beginning, the immortal Emperor of Flames did not put the ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike in his eyes. After all, he had never heard of this kind of lost ability of the ancient devils in his long life. Thus he looked down on it. Facing the shadow of the ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike, the immortal Emperor of Flames used his large hand to tear the ground. Instantly, countless fiery cracks appeared in the sky, and the fist light was sucked into the cracks. However, at the next moment, the fist light shattered all the cracks with a loud bang. It rushed out from the cracks and landed on the chest of the immortal Emperor of Flames. The immortal Emperor of Flames let out a muffled groan and spurted out a mouthful of blood. He was forced to retreat several hundred jong before he could regain his balance. His eyes were filled with astonishment. The God-destroying giant's punch actually made a dent in his body which was 1,000,000 times stronger. He took a deep breath and no longer looked down on the God-destroying giant. Then he glanced at the other immortal emperor envoys beside him. This time, he was not the only one. The other three ancient immortal emperors also rushed towards the God-destroying giant. None of them dared to be careless. Roar! The God-destroying giant let out a furious roar, and threw out 4 consecutive punches. Each punch was stronger than the previous one, and each punch was stronger than the previous one, forcing the 4 emperors to retreat. While the 4 emperors were retreating while coughing out blood, the God-destroying giant relied on his endless magic power to throw out 100 punches within 2 breaths. At the same time, he increased the number of consecutive punches to more than 900, directly destroying the physical body of one of the 4 emperors. After losing his physical body, that immortal emperor was overwhelmed with shock. His primordial spirit no longer dared to continue fighting. Instead, it turned into the light of a firefly, and went back into the ground. In the next round of attacks, the 3 emperors who were forced to retreat looked grim. They summoned the other 10 or so ancient immortal emperors to besiege the God-destroying giant. At this moment, Ning Fan had forgotten the high and mighty respect of immortal emperors, and the terror of ancient immortal emperors. In his eyes, there was no longer any distinction between immortal emperors. In his eyes, there was only the thought of throwing punches. 910 punches. 920 punches. 1,000 punches. 1,100 punches. 1,200 punches. 2,000 punches. 2,500 punches. 3,000 punches. With Ning Fan's current cultivation base and his current strength, he would never be able to hit 3,000 consecutive punches. In this process, he could not do it without the help of the divine tree of Underworld Earth. The ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike of 800 consecutive punches could destroy the physical body of a 6th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. After 3,000 consecutive punches, each of his punches had the terrifying power to kill an 8th Tribulation Immortal Emperor. The 3,000 consecutive punches had even exceeded the defense of the God-destroying shield. Each of his punches had a backlash which destroyed 80 to 90% of Ning Fan's primordial spirit. Then, under the treatment of the Underworld Earth Divine Tree, his injuries were instantly healed. With the help of the Underworld Earth Divine Tree, he could disregard the consumption of his magic power and the injuries he sustained. He could do whatever he wanted. He could try the power of the 3,000 ancient Devil Mountain Breaking Strike. One after another, The ancient immortal emperors exploded under Ning Fan's punches. If he could not kill them with one punch, he would use 2 punches. If 10 punches were not enough, he would use 20 punches. Ning Fan could not hit 3,100 consecutive punches. Otherwise, he would directly die from the backlash. He would not even have the chance to ask the underworld Earth Divine Tree to save him. However, it was not a big deal. After hitting 3,000 punches, Ning Fan would just have to break his combo and hit 3,000 consecutive punches again. After all, his magic power was inexhaustible. After all, his injuries would not kill him. Anyway, his battle intent was getting stronger and stronger. Then let's fight. I don't care if you are an immortal emperor or some other existence. He would not allow anyone to pass through the 1,000 zhang of land behind him. Are all the immortal venerables of the future as strong as this young man? Even us ancient immortal emperors are not his match. Even with the help of the underworld Earth Divine Tree, this young man is just too heaven-defying. If it were any other immortal venerables, they would definitely not be able to do this even with the help of the Divine Tree. What exactly is this kind of combo technique? There was definitely no such technique in the era where we were alive. Moreover, 3,000 strikes seems to be the limit of this child, and not the limit of this technique. I am very doubtful whether this technique has a limit or not. This kind of mystical divine ability, just which peerless prodigy of the future created it? Countless immortal emperors were blown up and forced to retreat. Deep inside their hearts, they were filled with fear towards the ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike. Seeing that even a large group of immortal emperors could not kill the god-exterminating giant, the 6 ancient great cultivators and 30 or so quasi-saints finally stopped watching carefully and joined the battle. There were 2 reasons why they did not join the battle until now. Firstly, they were afraid of Kai Wei-sheng. Secondly, they were stunned by the ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike. They wanted to see what Ning Fan's limit was. If Ning Fan could still hit 5,000 or 8,000 consecutive punches that could even kill them, they might not necessarily dare to join the battle. Unfortunately, after they repeatedly confirmed that Ning Fan's limit was only around 3,000 consecutive punches of the ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike. This level of damage could even destroy the physical body of a 9-tribulation ancient emperor. Moreover, it was performed by a doomsday immortal venerable. It was really unimaginable. If this matter were to spread out, it would shock and scare any quasi-saints or ancient great cultivators. However, it was not enough to make them feel fearful. And, since we have decided to join the battle, I suppose you are also prepared to die here, aren't you? One of the ancient great cultivators said coldly. This person was the one who broke the boiling water and flooded a world. The feeling he gave Ning Fan was not much weaker than the ancient chaos great emperor. He was a terrifying existence who could fight against weak saints. Ning Fan did not answer him. His battle intent did not diminish at all. However, he had a feeling that he was at the end of the road. Be it a quasi-saint or an ancient great cultivator. Even if he managed to hit 3,000 consecutive punches of the ancient Devil Mountain breaking strike, he would definitely not be a match for a single person. Moreover, his opponent was not just a quasi-saint or an ancient great cultivator, but dozens of them. The combination of such combat power was enough to destroy the 4 heavens and 9 worlds dozens of times. How could he withstand all of them by himself? However, so what if he can't withstand them? As long as I am still breathing, none of you will be able to surpass me. The human exterminating divine being roared furiously. His eyes were burning with the flames of battle. He was like a lone wolf facing a group of tigers. He threw out punches without any intention of killing these supreme beings. Instead, he just wanted to hold them back and prevent them from getting close to Kai Wei. At this moment, he was surrounded by countless experts who were far stronger than him with his tiny body. However, he did not feel a trace of fear at all. There was only calmness. He entered this place knowing that he would die. What was there to fear about death? The densely packed punches formed a net of fire. Even though these quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators would not be injured by the crazy rainstorm-like attacks, it was difficult for them to move forward against the punches. Moreover, they needed to defend themselves at all times and could not spare any hands to attack Ning Fan. At this moment, Ning Fan's crazy attacks without caring about the price he had to pay made him look like a human-shaped cannon. The frequency of his attacks was comparable to the attacks of dozens of Nine Tribulation immortal emperors who went all out. Of course, he could only launch these attacks with the help of the divine tree of underworld soil. Even so, it was enough to prove Ning Fan's strength. With his immortal venerable realm cultivation base, he was able to defeat dozens of quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators all by himself. He had done something that countless immortal emperors did not dare to attempt. 10 breaths of time passed. They were only 10 zhang closer to Kai Wei while withstanding the intense attacks. 100 breaths of time passed, and they were only 100 zhang closer. 500 breaths of time later, more and more quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators began to frown. They realized that when they were close to a certain distance, Ning Fan actually wanted to ignite his blood to unleash a stronger punch force to stop them from moving forward. Ning Fan's punch was very heavy. It was far beyond the first level of immortal venerable realm. It might not be enough to hurt them, but it would not be easy for them to withstand it without suffering any injuries. If he were to ignite his blood and risk his life, they might really not be able to move forward anymore. Damn it! Are so many of us really going to be stopped by an ant? That would be a great humiliation. Little brat, I won't give you the chance to ignite your blood. At first, I didn't want to use the power of the dark star to kill you. After all, I will have to pay a huge price for doing so. However, in order to get rid of you as soon as possible, I have no choice but to use it. One of the ancient great cultivators became impatient after being blocked by Ning Fan's punch. In a fit of rage, he drew the power of the stars in the sky. As soon as the power of the stars fell, it killed the entire god-destroying giant. These stars were the condensation of the power of the sage orthodoxy. Besides, it was not the orthodoxy of a single sage but the collective power of countless sages. How could Ning Fan possibly defend against it? It was not strange at all for him to die in a single blow. It would be strange if he could survive the attack, because it meant that Ning Fan possessed a heaven-defying defensive power that was comparable to a fourth-step immortal emperor. Ning Fan's figure could no longer be seen on the spot. There was only the god-destroying shield which had lost its owner, and the second hole on it. It fell on the muddy ground alone. From the moment Ning Fan began to stop the great army of ancient cultivators to the moment he was killed, only 1 hour had passed. 1 hour. He had only stopped the great army for 1 hour. This was his limit. However, it was also the limit that most of the immortal emperors could not achieve. He overestimated himself. What's the point of sacrificing his life for 1 hour? Ants will always be ants. We can't understand their thoughts. If this young man cherishes his life a little more, he might be able to cultivate to the peak of the second step with his innate potential. Many of the quasi-saints wore disdainful looks on their faces. No one dared to stop them anymore. With a flash, they approached Kai Weisheng. Just as they were about to attack Kai Weisheng, she opened her eyes. Her gaze was filled with coldness, and she stood up. All the quasi-saints and ancient great cultivators were like cats whose hair stood on end. In shock, all of them desperately retreated 1,000 zhang away. The way they looked at Kai Weisheng was as if they were looking at a peerless ferocious beast. Who says that the 1 hour that this young friend fought for is meaningless? You bunch of undead creatures, don't be so proud of yourself. All of you, go back to the underworld and sleep. Kai Weisheng raised her hand. A huge purple star instantly appeared and rotated on her palm, emitting a boundless desolate saint aura. Then the purple star soared into the sky. In an instant, its purple starlight covered all the starlight of the dark star in this place, dyeing it purple. Impossible. You actually have a way to cover the starlight of the dark star. Could it be? Could it be? An ancient great cultivator trembled in fear, and flew into the sky to escape. In front of normal second-step cultivators, they were undefeatable ancient great cultivators. However, in front of a desolate saint, they were undoubtedly ants. That's right. I have completely replaced the will of the underworld. Of course, it is only temporary. With my desolate saint cultivation, I cannot control the underworld. After all, it is the relic of the underworld lord. However, Kai Weisheng mercilessly waved her hand. A ray of purple starlight shot out from her sleeve and killed the escaping ancient great cultivator. Everyone was terrified. Even ancient great cultivators couldn't survive one round. This was the terror of a desolate saint. Everyone also learned that this desolate saint was so heaven-defying that he had temporarily replaced the will of the underworld with his own will. No one here could stop this desolate saint, not even the dark star. Instantly, everyone ran in all directions. However, not a single one of them could escape. Kai Weiqing stretched her hand forward and reached the sky all of a sudden. When she opened her palm, a palm imprint covered the sky and covered the entire underworld continent. After that, her palm fell. All the ancient shadows that fled in all directions were killed by Kai Weiqing's palm imprint. None of them could fly out of the range of her palm imprint. In this way, the karma can be settled, right? 1 hour. Hehe. I didn't expect this young man to actually be able to hold on for so long. He even lasted for twice the time compared to the best situation I expected. How amazing. In this way, the number of souls that I can help him take away is a little more than what I expected. Of course, when the Yellow Spring Holy Sect pursues this matter, I'm afraid the punishment will be even greater. Kai Weiqing smiled bitterly. She sat down cross-legged on the ground and began to regulate her breathing. Even though he had the underworld divine tree to help him heal his injuries when he fought against the will of the dark star of this world, it could not heal the fatigue on the spiritual level. It was alright to be tired. Compared to the joy of settling the karma, this bit of fatigue was nothing. After settling the karma between him and Ji Qingling, he could finally start preparing for the legendary 4th step. Kai Weiqing waited at this place for another 2 days. 2 days later, a ray of moonlight shone out from the storage pouch that Ning Fan left behind. After that, Ning Fan used up the last bit of will of the saint in the moonlight treasure box to revive himself. At first, Ning Fan was still worried that the 1 hour that he had bought himself was not enough. However, when he found out that the time was more than enough, he immediately heaved a sigh of relief. After a few more days, Kai Weiqing generously helped Ning Fan leave this world of the underworld. Even when she left, she did not reveal her name to Ning Fan. When Ning Fan's primordial spirit left, his hand was carefully holding a seed that was formed from fluorescence. That was a trace of the remnant soul of the slaughter sovereign that Kai Weiqing had obtained for him. In other words, it could be said to be the remnant soul of the sword ancestor. Because of your protection, the remnant soul that I obtained was a little more than what I expected. If I force myself to use it, I can actually condense a yellow spring soul seed. However, this has exceeded my previous plan. Senior, may I ask what a yellow spring soul seed is? Don't ask too much. Just take it and plant it. You are so weak. I'm too lazy to scheme against you. You don't have to worry about this. At my level, if I honestly say that I won't scheme against you, then I really won't. I won't even bother to lie. Remember that after you plant the yellow spring soul seed, you must use the best soil to nurture it and water it with the best Tao spring. As long as you are sincere, you will be able to see that woman again one day. As for your trip to the underworld, you better keep this matter to yourself. Don't mention it to anyone, not even the people closest to you. This matter is one of the greatest taboos in the world. Even some incipient saints and nirvana saints are not qualified to know about it. It's not a good thing to know too much. Thank you for your kindness today, Senior. If I have the fortune to go to the true world, I will certainly repay you. Humph. There's no need for that. Your karma is a little complicated. It involves the Zido immortal domain, the ancient desolate immortal domain, the Taitsong tribulation spirit, the ancient divine spirits and the god-destroying shield of the ancient country. I don't want to get involved in your karma. I also don't think that there is anything that you can repay me with. Ning Fan naturally did not mind Kai Wei's sharp tongue. He did owe her some karma. Even if she did not want to repay him, he would definitely repay her in the future. He did not know if Kai Wei had really done him a favor, or if she had other plans. He could only choose to believe her. He believed that he would be able to meet Tu Huang and the sword ancestor again after getting this soul seed back. He believed that the efforts he had put his life on the line for the past 2 times would not be in vain. Holding the soul seed in his hand, Ning Fan's bitter heart more or less had a hint of hope. All of his magic treasures were damaged during this trip, including the god-destroying shield. All of them needed to be repaired properly. The price he had to pay was not small. However, as long as he could get back a trace of Tu Huang's remnant soul, and the possibility of reuniting with her, he would be willing to destroy all of his magic treasures, let alone just having half of them destroyed. Even if he has to exchange his life for hers, he would be willing to do so. I'm already very lucky to be able to return alive from the underworld and bring back a trace of her soul. In this way, I might be able to slightly repay what I owe her in my previous and current lives. It has been 40 days since I entered the underworld. I wonder what's the situation in the Supreme Pill Sacred region. Have those quasi-saints returned? My physical body was lost outside. I wonder if it's still there. Or perhaps, it has already been picked up and destroyed by some despicable cultivators. Ning Fan sighed. That day, his physical body was bound and he could not move at all. He had no choice but to use his primordial spirit to rush into the underworld. At that time, he did not have the time to care about his physical body. Now, however, he had no choice but to care about it. A spatial crack opened. Ning Fan was sent out of the underworld by Kai Wei's ability and returned to the place where Tu Huang had fallen that day. As soon as he returned to the outside world, he was locked onto by thousands of spirit sense experts. Moreover, there were tens of fragmentary thought and immortal venerated realm abilities that were aimed at Ning Fan, trying to kill him who had suddenly appeared in this place. This was not the same as the attack from the phantoms of the underworld that day. Ning Fan was naturally not afraid of this level of attack. His primordial spirit neither dodged nor evaded. With just the toughness of his primordial spirit, he took on everyone's attacks head-on and remained unscathed, shocking everyone. Hiss! What a strange primordial spirit. It can actually be so tough. It's simply unheard of. Who is this primordial spirit? Does he also want a share? We don't even have enough of Great Devil Ning's physical body. How can we share it with him? Wait. Look at the appearance of this primordial spirit. Doesn't it look the same as Great Devil Ning? Hiss. Damn it. He is Great Devil Ning. Great Devil Ning has returned. He didn't die. His primordial spirit just left his body. We actually coveted his physical body. We will die. We will die. Run. Countless cultivators of Great Desolate Realm who had been guarding this place and refining Ning Fan's physical body for many days fled in fear. Unfortunately, before they could get far, Ning Fan's primordial spirit caught up to them and killed them one by one. Ning Fan would not show any mercy to these enemies. As soon as he used his ability to communicate with all living things, he learned about the actions of these people in the past 40 days from the thoughts of the plants and flowers in this place. They were undoubtedly his enemies. After Ning Fan entered the underworld, his physical body was discovered by some cultivators of Great Desolate Realm who arrived later, who asked Tu Huang to cause such a huge commotion when he fought with someone. It would be strange if no one came to investigate. When these cultivators of Great Desolate Realm who arrived late discovered Ning Fan's physical body, their first reaction was fear. For 3 whole days, none of them dared to act recklessly. Who among the cultivators of Great Desolate Realm could remain calm when they saw Ning Fan? However, on the 4th day, after these people confirmed that Ning Fan's physical body would not move, they heaved a sigh of relief. Some of them guessed that Ning Fan's primordial spirit had left his physical body in this place. Some of them guessed that Ning Fan had died, and only his corpse was left intact. Some of them wanted to destroy Ning Fan's physical body, but they realized that ordinary methods could not harm Ning Fan's physical body, which was a divine spirit body at all. They could not even leave a scratch on his body even if they hit him. Some of them became greedy for Ning Fan's powerful physical body and wanted to take it back home to possess it. However, more and more cultivators of Great Desolate Realm came to this place after hearing the news. There were too many monks and not enough gruel. Naturally, they could not let any one of them monopolize Ning Fan's physical body. Thus, someone came up with an absurd suggestion. Using the large cauldron to extract the essence of Ning Fan's flesh and blood, and then sharing it with everyone at the scene would certainly benefit in terms of the strength of their physical bodies. Because there were too many monks and not enough gruel, the cultivators at the scene did not spread the news that Ningfan's physical body was left in this place. Otherwise, there might be stronger existences who would participate in the fight for it. Thus, for 40 days, these people had been using a large cauldron to extract the essence of Ningfan's flesh and blood and supplement it with various spiritual herbs. Unfortunately, Ningfan's great 5-elemental physique was too weak. Ordinary true fire could not harm his physical body at all. Instead, the injuries on his physical body had mostly healed under the nourishment of the medicinal power. Occasionally, other people would come to the scene. If they could not kill them in a single move, they would also allow them to participate in the division of flesh. In the end, even when Ningfan's primordial spirit returned, these people did not manage to obtain any benefits from Ningfan's physical body. When Ningfan's primordial spirit left his body, he brought his storage pouch with him. Thus, these people naturally did not manage to obtain any benefits from Ningfan's physical body. As for the yin-yang locket that was hidden in his dantian, it was even more impossible for it to be discovered by others. Those people could not break Ningfan's physical body and obtain the yin-yang locket. Even if they managed to obtain it, they would not be able to open it. Even if they managed to open it, they would only be courting death as Zhongyu was inside. Beside the large cauldron, there was a dog that was on the verge of death. It was not an ordinary dog but a heavenly dog. The reason why Ningfan killed all the cultivators here in a fit of rage was not only because these people were after his physical body. From the information provided by Hua Hua Chao, Ningfan learned one thing. When his physical body was not protected by anyone, a heavenly dog crawled out from the ground following his scent. This heavenly dog was the heavenly dog that he had casually planted an illusion technique in the Fire Soul Tower that day and subdued it. On that day, this heavenly dog had actually left the Fire Soul Tower together with Ningfan. However, after Ningfan walked out of the tower's door, he was directly teleported back to the surface by the formation of the tower's door. However, this heavenly dog was different. Its identity could not be identified by the formation of the tower's door. Thus, it could not be teleported directly. After walking out of the tower's door, it needed to dig all the way to the Great Brightness Temple on the surface from the depths of the Fire Soul Tower, where the Two-World Seal was located. How hard was the rock stratum of the middle state? At least, it was not something that this heavenly dog could dig to the surface in a short period of time. Fortunately, the heavenly dog clan had hard claws and teeth. Thus it dug day and night. After digging for an unknown period of time, it finally reached the surface. However, Ningfan was no longer in the Great Brightness Temple by then. It had been too long since the second round of the mausoleum seizing competition ended. It began to search for Ningfan in the entire Middle State. It began to search for Ningfan in the entire Supreme Pill Sacred region. It did not know how long it had been searching for Ningfan, but it still could not find him. It was because Ningfan in his normal state had a way to conceal his qi and karma. He would not leave any traces for it to find. When Ningfan lost control of his physical body and released his qi, it finally found him by following the scent of his physical body. However, it realized that what it found was just a corpse. The master that it had followed wholeheartedly was actually dead. Moreover, the corpse of its master was refined and divided by countless ugly people of the great despicable realm. This made this heavenly dog infuriated. Thus, it ferociously rushed towards each of the people of the great despicable realm, trying to stop this matter. However, with its meager cultivation base, it could not take back its master's corpse at all. Instead, it was beaten to a pulp by a group of people of the great despicable realm. If it was not because someone had noticed that this heavenly dog had a special bloodline and could be kept as a spiritual pet, it would have probably been killed by them. Woof woof woof. The heavenly dog, which was on the verge of death, suddenly smelled Ningfan's scent. It struggled to open its eyes and barked happily. It turns out that its master is not dead. That's great. Woof woof woof. After the pleasant surprise, it felt as if its wish had been fulfilled. It fell to the ground and breathed no more. Its life force was gone. It closed its eyes peacefully. Ningfan's primordial spirit frowned and landed in front of the heavenly dog. He raised his small hand and sent his life force into the heavenly dog's body. Finally, The heavenly dog which had almost lost its life was saved by Ning Fan. Ning Fan never owed anyone karma. He was not even willing to owe the karma of a heavenly dog. He could not save the complete sovereign slayer. He could only bring back a soul seed. He already felt extremely guilty about what happened to Sovereign Slayer. If another heavenly dog dies because of him, no. From today onwards, I will never let something like this happen again. If I can't even protect the people around me, then what's the point of cultivating the Tao? You are very brave. I can see your heart. You seem to have recognized me and want to serve me as your master. It's fine too. Judging from your innate talent, you seem to be quite good. It's just that your cultivation base is mediocre because you are living in the Heavenly Dog clan and lack the guidance of a great master. From today onwards, I will accept you as my servant. If you remain loyal, I will certainly bring you to the peak of cultivation. This is my promise. Since I have decided to accept you as my servant, I need to give you a name. Let me think. Giving a name is the most troublesome thing. Ning Fan frowned. All of a sudden, he had a flash of inspiration. When he entered the Yellow Spring, he had fallen into the illusion technique of the entrance of the Yellow Spring. In that illusion, he saw the scene of two saints fighting each other. One of them was a saint named Xueling Zi while the other was a saint named Crow Heavenly Dog. Speaking of which, that Crow Heavenly Dog is also a heavenly dog. I have thought of a majestic name. From today onwards, you shall be called Crow Heavenly Dog. In this world, there were many people who had the same name. He would not be affected by such a small matter. Even if he was, Ning Fan did not care because he was really too lazy to think of a name. Ning Fan, who would never admit that he had plagiarized someone else's name, stroked the heavenly dog's head. When he saw that the heavenly dog's chi gradually returned to normal after absorbing his life force, a smile finally appeared on his face. He was happy for the heavenly dog's survival. Woof woof woof. It was Crow Heavenly Dog's voice. He was overjoyed and grateful to Ning Fan for saving his life. He quite liked his new name. He was even happier because he finally had a reliable master. His life in the future was going to be settled. Take some more pills to heal your wounds. Don't disturb me while I'm casting the rain technique. I want to check the current situation of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. Those quasi-saints seem to have yet to return from the chaotic space. Could it be that they are still fighting inside? What a pity. The fake map of the two formations of the ancient country and the heaven-opening Chi Void wooden box aren't considered a loss. Only the 60% of the extreme yang water will probably benefit their enemies if it falls into their hands, allowing their cultivation base to improve tremendously. However, I had no other choice. If it wasn't for the enticement of great benefits, it would have been impossible for me to lure them into the chaotic space. Unfortunately, I didn't manage to trap the 10 wasps in the end. Ning Fan's expression was a little bitter. He recalled the battle on the sacred mountain. It was such a desperate battle, but in the end, Tu Huang still failed to escape from the schemes of others. He carefully kept his soul seed. Then his primordial spirit went into his physical body inside the cauldron and broke out of it. Then he used his magic power to create clothes. Woof woof woof. Crow Heavenly Dog struggled to stand up with his weak body. He spat out a jade bottle from his mouth and pushed it to Ning Fan's feet with his head. Ning Fan was stunned. He picked up the jade bottle and scanned it with his spirit sense. Then his expression changed. Why would the extreme yang water that I threw into the chaotic space be here? Could it be? Is there really such a coincidence in the creation of this world? Interesting. Ning Fan pondered for a moment and guessed the cause and effect. In the chaotic space, the 10 wasps were the ones who hid the deepest. After knowing that the other 2 items were fake, they snatched the extreme yang water and returned to the outside world. After returning to the outside world, they refused to give up their evil intentions. They wanted to scheme against Ning Fan and Tu Huang. In the end, they were killed by the furious Tu Huang. The extreme yang water that they brought back to the outside world was also lost after the great battle. It was picked up by Crow Heavenly Dog, who had a keen sense of smell. He hid it in his mouth and no one noticed it. Is this how it feels like to have 1,000 gold scattered and come back again? It would be great if that woman named Ji Qingling could also return safely with them. Forget it. It's not my style to sigh. Since things have come to this, I can only think of ways to make up for it. I will look for the best soil and the best Dao spring to water her soul seed. One day, we will meet again. When that time comes, I will properly settle the score with her for leaving without saying goodbye this time. I don't care if you are Tu Huang or the Sword Ancestor. Now that you have become my woman, don't even think about leaving so easily. Chapter 1089. Ning Fan brought Crow Tiango along and rode the black immortal cloud back to the dragon nest on the Stone Flame continent. Due to the unforeseen event that happened to Emperor Tu, Duolan would have to stay in this dragon nest and cultivate alone in the future. With that in mind, Ning Fan gave Duolan a lot of self-protection items for her cultivation. They were not meant to protect her from attacks. Instead, they were worried that Duolan would be cultivating alone. Once something goes wrong, no one would be there to save her. Duolan repeatedly asked about Emperor Tu's whereabouts. She was extremely worried. Ning Fan could only remain silent. Hence, Duolan, who had a vague feeling that Emperor Tu might have met with misfortune, also remained silent. She was unwilling to believe that the supreme female emperor, who was carefree and unrestrained and made her feel inferior, actually died just like that. Don't let your thoughts run wild. That woman isn't truly dead. One day, I will find a way to bring her back. As for you, I'm afraid you will have to cultivate alone in this place in the future. When my cultivation base is strong enough to erase the curse of the saints of this world, I will come back and bring you away. I'm not worried about your safety. I'm just worried that you will be lonely in the future, because you have lost a companion. Senior, you don't have to worry about me. Ever since my father died, I have already gotten used to living alone. Even though I'm the only one here, there aren't so many schemes and harms. It's countless times better than being in the outside world. Then I will leave for real this time. Take care. Senior, you are the one who should take care of yourself. Duolan will wait for you here forever. Ning Fan patted Duolan's head and left in silence. The previous time was also a farewell. However, he did not have such a heavy heart like he did now. When he walked out of the dragon nest again, Duolan was the only one who sent him off. He no longer had Emperor Tu's indifferent gaze. When he walked out of the dragon nest again, his heart was no longer as calm as before. Uncontrollably, the scenes of him interacting with Emperor Tu appeared in his mind. The Ying Dragon Claw was forced out of Ning Fan's body because it was already damaged. The damage was caused during the great battle in the underworld. It was already irreparable. In the past, if Ning Fan's spiritual equipment was damaged, he would throw it away directly after forcing it out of his body. However, this time, he did not throw away the remains of the Ying Dragon Claw. As soon as he saw this spiritual equipment, he recalled the scenes in the blood martial arena and Emperor Tu. Countless thoughts eventually turned into a silent sigh. While sighing, Ning Fan rode the black immortal cloud and flew away from the extreme Pill Sacred region with Crow Tiango. He no longer wanted to pay attention to Supreme Ox Ghost's transactions and schemes. He had also lost interest in the treasures that were full of schemes in the sacred mountain. As for the cultivators of the dark race and the eastern heaven who were hiding in the sacred mountain, Ning Fan was too lazy to pay attention to them. He had more important things to do and was in a hurry to return. Ning Fan finally understood how tormenting it was to owe someone karma, but not be able to repay it. At this moment he only had one wish, and that was to quickly return to the eastern sky and save the ancient Chaos Great Emperor. He owed the ancient Chaos Great Emperor a lot of karma. If he extended the ancient Chaos Great Emperor's life, he would be able to repay some of it. The only troublesome thing was that the passage of the realm beasts to the extreme Pill Sacred region had already been destroyed. When Ning Fan leaves the extreme Pill Sacred region, he would have to choose a different world path in order to return to the eastern heaven. This meant that the landing point of his return to the eastern sky would not be the extreme Dan Divine City that he entered, but somewhere else. A planet would not stop rotating because of a person. The world would not stagnate because of a certain matter. The opening of the extreme Pill Sacred region was indeed a grand event in the eastern heaven. However, no matter how grand the event was, There would be a day when it would be forgotten by people. The Eastern Heaven was a place with many battles. The cultivators here might be interested in some grand events, but what they loved more was fighting, killing and plundering actual benefits to improve themselves. It had only been a year since the opening of the Extreme Pill Sacred Region, but many cultivators of the Eastern Heaven had already forgotten about it. The Extreme Pill Sacred Region had also returned to its former desolation. In the 3rd month after the opening of the Extreme Pill Sacred Region, a cultivator on the Eastern Heaven's ancient Joy planet unearthed a partially damaged innate magic treasure. This incident caused countless forces of the Eastern Heaven to fight over it. Nearly 100 true immortal old monsters died because of this. There were even immortal emperors of the Eastern Heaven who fought over it. In the 7th month after the opening of the Extreme Pill Sacred Region, a huge battle broke out between the Eastern Heaven-seeking immortal sect and the Mo High sect. It was a battle between two immortal venerables. The cause of the battle was to fight over the remains of an ancient immortal king's cave. In the 10th month after the opening of the Extreme Pill Sacred Region, an eternal tribulation immortal venerable died tragically for unknown reasons. After his death, his forces were divided by several immortal venerables. It was another reign of terror. In the 13th month after the opening of the Extreme Pill Sacred Region, a war broke out in the White Bird Star region. More than 10 true immortal sects were involved in this matter. The cultivation planets of the White Bird Star region had snow all year round, and the climate was very cold. It wasn't suitable for most cultivators to live in, but it was extremely suitable for cultivators with ice attribute cultivation techniques to live here. This was the paradise of ice cultivators. The ice cultivators who cultivated in this star region occupied hundreds and thousands of cultivation planets. The number of ice cultivators was never less than 1 million. Among them, there were 16 true immortal sects that were located here. They joined forces to establish the White Bird Alliance, and managed all the ice cultivators who came here to cultivate. Every ice cultivator who came here to cultivate had to pay a certain amount of protection fee before they could cultivate in this star region. The cultivators who came here to cultivate had to abide by the iron rules set by the White Bird Alliance. They had to abide by their duties, and were not allowed to fight recklessly. Because of the existence of the White Bird Alliance, this star region was still considered peaceful in the past. It was considered an anomaly in the war in the eastern sky. However, even such a peaceful star region was involved in a war. Recently, a devil appeared out of nowhere and declared war on the entire White Bird Alliance with his own strength. This matter shocked the true immortal circle in the eastern sky. The devil who declared war on the White Bird Alliance was called the Three-Fingered Old Devil. This name had an origin, and that was that cultivators of the same level as him couldn't take 3 of his fingers. Often the second finger could kill all cultivators of the same level. If the third finger was used, it could kill people of a higher level. This was a powerful devil that was invincible among cultivators of the same level. At this moment, in the cold star region of the White Bird Star region, the Three-Fingered Old Devil stood with his hands behind his back. The powerful aura of a newly advanced immortal venerable swept out, causing the thousands of Alliance cultivators surrounding him to feel a chill. Among the thousands of cultivators surrounding him, almost all the elites of the 16 White Bird sects were gathered here just to kill the Three-Fingered Old Devil. Trash. A bunch of trash. What bullshit, White Bird Alliance, it's just a child's play. This old man can kill all of you by myself. It seems like the 16 sects of the Alliance are all here. Good, this is too good. This saves this old man from wasting time and looking for you one by one. Men, kill all of them. Women, ha ha. The Three-Fingered Old Devil's face was full of evil. His gaze swept across the thousands of female cultivators, and immediately caused countless female cultivators to fly into a rage out of humiliation. These words enraged one of the fragmented thoughts who was besieging the cultivators. With a roar, he took the lead and charged towards the Three-Fingered Old Devil. That was an old man riding on a wine gourd. He was slightly weaker than the Three-Fingered Old Devil. He was an old monster who was half a step into the immortal venerable realm. His aura was vast and boundless. He was the #1 old monster in the 16 White Bird sects, and was known as the Wine Heaven Monarch. Normally, He was crazy and had a playful attitude. But today, the Wine Heaven monarch's heart was frighteningly sober and frighteningly cold. There wasn't any drunkenness in his eyes, only the blood red of hatred. The Wine Heaven monarch killed his way towards the three-fingered old devil. He couldn't hide the anger in his heart, and his eyes were about to split. Just a few days ago, several of his female disciples, who he treated as his own, were dismembered by the three-fingered old devil in front of countless passers-by when they were out. He even cut off some parts of his female disciples and kept them as a collection. His methods were truly outrageous. This enmity was absolutely irreconcilable. He must kill this devil today. Wine Heaven monarch, huh? I heard that your drunken sword skill is extremely powerful, but I wonder if you can force me to use the third finger. The three-fingered old devil sneered in disdain. In the midst of his disdainful voice, the Wine Heaven monarch had already approached within 3,000 feet. He lifted his foot and stepped on the wine gourd. Immediately, a stream of wine mist flew out from the gourd and rushed towards the three-fingered old devil. At first, the wine mist was just a misty fog, but when it was 1,000 feet away, the wine mist suddenly condensed and turned into a cold sword light that was 7 zhang long and 7 qi long. It slashed towards the three-fingered old devil's head. The three-fingered old devil dodged to the side. Not far behind him, an abandoned planet covered with white snow was directly slashed apart by the sword light, shattering the planet into pieces. The Wine Heaven monarch changed his finger seals, and the cold sword light was divided into 10, and then into 100. Suddenly, 100 sword lights that were powerful enough to slash apart the stars shot towards the three-fingered old devil. The three-fingered old devil laughed and didn't put these sword lights in his eyes. He raised his hand and pointed a finger. The cold ice chi in the entire starry sky was condensed at the tip of his finger. With a single finger, the 100 sword lights that were attacking him were all frozen in an instant. Then he pointed another finger at the Wine Heaven monarch. With the Wine Heaven monarch as the center, the surrounding starry sky began to freeze crazily. Even the Wine Heaven monarch was no exception. With a horrified expression, he was frozen to death and turned into an ice sculpture. Hiss! Countless cultivators of the Alliance were shocked to death. No one had expected that the #1 expert of the Alliance, the Wine Heaven monarch, couldn't even withstand the second finger of the three-fingered old devil. A half-step immortal venerable was killed by 2 fingers. The devil name of the three-fingered old devil was indeed not fake. He was truly a terrifying existence that was unrivaled in the same realm. Ha ha ha. All of you can come together. Don't waste this old man's time. The three-fingered old devil was arrogant. He looked at the surrounding cultivators as if they were nothing. His action immediately angered all the cultivators of the Alliance. Immediately, more than a dozen late and peak thought fragmentation cultivators joined hands and attacked the three-fingered old devil. The rest of the cultivators occupied the starry sky and activated the absolute kill grand formation. They wanted to cooperate with the thought fragmentation cultivators to kill the three-fingered old devil. The three-fingered old devil's eyes flashed fiercely and shouted, "One finger freezes the mountains and rivers." He raised his finger and pointed. The cold light instantly covered the entire starry sky. The 3 fastest thought fragmentation cultivators were directly frozen to death. The other thought fragmentation cultivators who were behind were also blown away by the power of the three-fingered old devil's finger. Each of them spurted out blood and retreated. The absolute kill formation that was set up by thousands of cultivators was frozen, and then broken into pieces. Among the thousands of cultivators, nearly half of them were turned into ice sculptures. They were swept away by the cold force and died a violent death. How can this devil be so strong? Even an eternal tribulation immortal venerable might not necessarily be stronger than him. Countless people were frightened. Haha. An eternal tribulation is nothing. Since several months ago, I have completely mastered the heaven freezing finger. This old man has also killed a first tribulation immortal venerable. Unfortunately, the entire eastern sky doesn't know that the murderer is this old man. From today onwards, the title of Eastern Sky's #1 devil is no longer that outdated Sunluo, but this old man. The three-fingered old devil laughed loudly. While laughing, he raised his finger and pointed, slaughtering the cultivators of the Alliance one by one. Some people wanted to escape, but they found that even the starry sky here was frozen. They couldn't use escape techniques to escape from here. When the last peak thought fragmentation cultivator of the Alliance was killed by the three-fingered old devil, all the cultivators of the Alliance lost the courage to continue resisting. The three-fingered old devil looked down at the few remaining Alliance cultivators from above. His expression was incomparably arrogant, as if the current him could truly become the Eastern Sky's #1 devil, showing disdain for all heroes by wiping out the White-Bird Alliance. He began to fantasize that after killing all the men here, he would play with all the female cultivators here. After that, he would go to the next star field and bully the men and women. How delightful! This is true cultivation. This is true devil cultivation. Don't feel unreconciled. Being able to die in the hands of this #1 devil of the Eastern Sky is your honor. Haha, this old man will press the last finger and send you all back. Before he could finish speaking, Old Devil Three Fingers let out a muffled groan and flew forward without warning. Behind him, unfortunately, there was a space crack that suddenly tore open. Because this space crack opened too suddenly and too violently, the three-fingered old devil didn't have enough time to guard against it. He was injured by the tearing power of space, and fell into the void in front of him. There was no longer any trace of the high and mighty devil venerable image. A second ago he still boasted of being the #1 devil of the Eastern Sky. The next second, he was lying in the starry sky in a sorry state. He stood up with difficulty. His expression was gloomy and frightening, as if he had been greatly humiliated. Who is it? Who is scheming against this old man? Daring to make this old man a fool? This old man will tear you into pieces. I will use your life to increase my name as the #1 devil of the Eastern Sky. The three-fingered old devil angrily roared, and raised his finger to press down on the space crack. He wanted to freeze this person to death before he could walk out of the crack. The cold air carried a trace of the power of the Tao. It swiftly and violently formed a snake in the starry sky. But unexpectedly, before his cold air could approach the space crack, it inconceivably melted and evaporated on its own. The three-fingered old devil was shocked. Ever since he had cultivated the heaven freezing finger, there had been people who could withstand his first finger. However, this was the first time he had encountered someone like this who could directly evaporate his cold air. The person who had come was definitely not a fragmented thought. It was very likely that he was also an ancient immortal venerable. Moreover, he was definitely not a weak immortal venerable. Humph. So what if you're an ancient immortal venerable? This old man has even jumped realms to kill a one tribulation immortal venerable. Why should I be afraid of you? Second finger freezing star. Third finger freezing sun and moon. Fourth finger freezing world. He actually used all 4 of the heaven freezing finger's finger seals in one breath. The heaven freezing finger was an extremely powerful divine ability. Even a second tribulation immortal venerable could use it as a trump card. At this moment, the three-fingered old devil had even used his 4th finger. His cold sense turned into hundreds and thousands of ice dragons which crashed into the space crack. The three-fingered old devil was extremely confident. He firmly believed that even if the other party was an ancient immortal venerable, he would also be severely injured by this cold air. However, a strange scene appeared again. Before the ice dragons could reach the space crack, they were melted by the vast magic power that came out of the space crack. Then Ning Fan's expression turned cold. He stepped on a dark cloud which carried Crow Tiango and flew out of the space crack. Some of the people who had seen Lord Yu's portrait immediately exclaimed when they saw Ning Fan's appearance. Immortal Lord Yu! It's actually him. Didn't he enter the Extreme Dan sacred region? Could it be that he has already returned? Why is he here? Could it be that he is the accomplice of the three-fingered old devil, who wants to kill all the cultivators of the White-Bird Alliance? Yes. That must be it. It can't be wrong. That immortal Lord Yu is infamous for his ferocious deeds. In the past, he annihilated the anti-Ning Alliance. It's not strange at all that he wants to annihilate our White-Bird Alliance. It's over. It's all over. We can't even defeat the three-fingered old devil. Now that immortal Lord Yu is here as well, We will definitely die. What's there to be afraid of? Even if I die, I will die while charging forward. I will never wait for death to come. Black lines appeared on Ningfan's forehead. He did not expect that he would be involved in a storm just as he walked out of the extreme Dan sacred region. Moreover, he was directly treated as an accomplice who came to annihilate a sect, three-fingered old devil? What the hell is that? I've never heard of him before. Is he an old devil who has been living in seclusion in the Eastern Heaven? Did he come out to wreak havoc after mastering a devil technique? This person even claims to be the #1 devil of the Eastern Heaven? How dare he dream of having such a title with such a weak cultivation base? Is it arrogance or ignorance? Oh, you are the legendary immortal Lord Yu? Sure enough, you have some skills. You actually managed to block my heaven-freezing fourth finger, which contains 70% of my magic power. Just now, I underestimated you and did not use my full strength. But this time, I won't hold back. Qi Ningfan was too lazy to listen to the nonsense of the three-fingered old devil. His body swayed slightly and a red light flashed. It was as if he had flown away from the black immortal clouds, but also as if he had never moved at all. At this moment, the primordial spirit of the three-fingered old devil was held in Ningfan's hand. The three-fingered old devil who had lost his primordial spirit had a hideous bloody hole in his dantian. Blood was gushing out from the hole. His corpse carried an expression of disbelief. It had lost all of its vitality. Then it was taken away by Ningfan. In any case, it was the corpse of an immortal venerable. It was a material to refine the 10,000 spirit blood. Even though this immortal venerable's level was a little low as he was just a newly advanced immortal venerable. Hiss! All the cultivators of the White Bird Alliance were shocked by the shocking scene in front of them. The immortal Lord Yu actually failed to kill the arrogant three-fingered old devil in a single move. These two people were not on the same side. The dignified three-fingered old devil, a dignified immortal venerable, actually could not survive for more than half a breath in the hands of the immortal Lord Yu. How is this possible? I am the dignified #1 devil of the Eastern Heaven. How could I be killed by you in a single move? The primordial spirit of the three-fingered old devil, who was captured by Ningfan, was terrified. When he got close to Ningfan, he could feel the immense baleful qi that Ningfan was deliberately suppressing. What kind of terrifying killing qi was that? Could it be that this kid had even killed immortal emperors before? Moreover, he had killed more than one person? What kind of joke is this? The #1 devil of the Eastern Heaven? If the #1 devil of the Eastern Heaven is only at your level, there wouldn't be so many wars in the Eastern Heaven that no one can suppress. Ningfan had never shown mercy to his enemies. He swallowed the three-fingered old devil's primordial spirit in a single gulp and devoured it. The terrifying scene once again made the cultivators of the White Bird Alliance pale. This was what it meant by seeing once was better than hearing 100 times. No matter how terrifying the immortal Lord Yu was in the rumors, they were just hearsay and lacked authenticity. Now that they witnessed Ningfan's attack with their own eyes, they finally understood what it meant to be unrivaled. What it meant to be terrifying. What it meant to be a man-eat-man world. Reverse spirit. Ningfan did not care about the war in the White Bird Galaxy. He used the reverse spirit technique and directly read everyone's memories, ignoring their will. The difference in their cultivation bases was too big. Even if these people wanted to resist, they could not do it. Moreover, none of them dared to resist Ningfan's ability. Each of them kept quiet out of fear, and did not even dare to breathe loudly. They just let Ningfan read their memories, fearing that he would directly kill them all if they resisted. As Ningfan's spirit sense became stronger, the damage caused by the reverse spirit technique to their sea of consciousness was almost non-existent. It would only make them feel a little dizzy. That was all. After a long time, Ningfan finished reading their memories. He patted his storage pouch and took out some pills that he did not need. Then, he casually gave them to the mid-thought fragmentation realm expert who had the highest cultivation base among the survivors. These pills are the compensation for the information you provided. Farewell. As soon as he finished speaking, Ningfan did not look at their reactions. He stepped on the black immortal cloud and instantly flew out of their vision. No one knew where he went. Hiss! What a fast speed! Even immortal kings don't have such speed. Some of the survivors were astonished. This is the sense-opening pill. Lord, you actually gave away such precious pills just like that. He's not here to kill us. He's just passing by. The old thought fragmentation realm expert who received the pills was pleasantly surprised. He cupped his fists and thanked Ningfan. He was not only thanking Ningfan for giving him the pills, but also for killing old devil three-fingered and saving countless rogue cultivators in the White Bird Galaxy. Some of the female cultivators stared at the direction where Ningfan left with sparkling eyes. They were lost in thought for a long time, as if they were admiring a hero. Ningfan's killing Qi was very frightening. However, in the eyes of some of the females, this kind of frightening was a kind of coldness and charm. Ningfan's reputation was very bad. In addition to the intentional defamation of the dark race, he was a person who committed all kinds of crimes and bullied people in the eyes of the world. However, in the eyes of these cultivators in the White Bird Galaxy, even though Ningfan's killing Qi was very strong, he was not necessarily an unreasonable villain. No matter how bad he was at least 1,000 or 10,000 times better than a devil like Old Devil Three-Fingered. One should know that devils with a character like Old Devil Three-Fingered were as numerous as the stars in the sky in the Eastern Heaven immortal world. It was just that their cultivation bases varied. Even if Ningfan's character was not good, he was not at the bottom of the list. I have an idea. Why don't we join the Thousand Autumn sect which is under Lord Yu? But Lord Yu is in big trouble. He has been targeted by the legendary secret race. Humph! If it wasn't for Lord Yu, we would have been killed by Old Devil Three-Fingered just now. Even though we aren't good people, the words "we must repay kindness" are still the only creed of the White Bird Alliance. It's precisely because Lord Yu is in trouble that we have to help him with all our might. It's just death. Why should we be afraid of the secret race? Besides, the only half-step immortal venerable in the White Bird Alliance is already dead. If we don't join some major forces, I'm afraid we won't be able to survive. Of course, repaying kindness is the most important thing. A few months ago, that secret race sent a battle invitation to the Thousand Autumn sect. This matter had already spread across the Eastern Heaven. Given Lord Yu's personality, he would most likely join the battle. There's no limit to the number of helpers in this battle. Even though we aren't considered as the top forces, we can still stand behind Lord Yu and cheer for him. Alright. This little brother will bring some people to the Thousand Autumn sect and present them with gifts in order to become their subordinate force. Ningfan did not know that he had just casually recruited a subordinate force for the Thousand Autumn sect. He did not care about what happened in the White Bird Star region at all. He killed Old Devil Three-Fingered not because he wanted to do something good. It was just a matter of convenience. Currently, after returning to the Eastern Heaven, he had already suppressed the sadness of killing the sovereign realm. Instead, it was replaced by worry. Firstly, he was worried about the first-grade quasi-saint Taoist Bai Zhu in the Extreme Dan Sacred region. Secondly, he was worried about the battle invitation. When he left the Extreme Dan Sacred region, the few quasi-saints had yet to return from the chaotic flow of space. However, if they returned, they would certainly hunt him down. Fortunately, he had already left the Extreme Dan Sacred region. Due to the existence of the Saint's Curse, the native quasi-saints of the Extreme Dan Sacred region would not be able to chase him to the Eastern Heaven to kill him. However, that Taoist Bai Zhu who was on the same side as the Dark Race would eventually return to the Eastern Heaven. After he returns, he would most likely attack him because of what happened in the Extreme Dan Sacred region. That person was a quasi-saint. To Ningfan, he was definitely a problem. This was his first concern. He was not only worried about Taoist Bai Zhu's strength, but also his special identity. This person seemed to be an ancient figure on the Devil Conferral Summit. Even the Radiant Buddha had heard of his name. When did the Devil Conferral Summit and the Dark Race get together? Didn't the Devil Conferral Summit perish in the ancient times? Why are there still surviving ancient devils appearing again and again? First, there was the Black Wing's great devil who descended on the divine tomb. The might of his roar did not disperse even after 10 years. Then, there was Taoist Bai Zhu who was an ancient devil at the Devil Conferral Summit, who suddenly appeared from the long river of history and sneaked into the extreme Dan's sacred region. It seemed like he was plotting something. This gave Ning Fan a sense of uneasiness, as if something big was brewing in the world. The more it was like this, the more Ning Fan would recall Nailan Zi's 3 lives prophecy. I'm afraid this world won't be peaceful anymore. As for the battle invitation, Ning Fan had gathered a lot of information from Cultivator by Niao's memories. It had not been a long time since he entered the extreme Dan sacred region. Even though the process was full of twists and turns, it was actually just a small trip that lasted slightly more than a year. Of course, Ning Fan, who had been cultivating in the Tower of Time for countless years, did not feel like only 1 year had passed. Instead, he felt like he had experienced many vicissitudes. This was just an exception. It had only been a year since the opening of the extreme Dan sacred region. However, the major event that attracted the attention of the entire Eastern Heaven was no longer the opening of the sacred region, but the Dark Race's challenge to the Thousand-Year Sect. A few months ago, the Dark Race sent someone to the Thousand-Year Sect and delivered a battle invitation to them. Before the ancient Chaos Great Emperor was eliminated, the Dark Race did not dare to take the initiative to attack Ning Fan. They only dared to do things behind his back. However, for some unknown reason, this time, the Dark Race actually came out to the open and delivered a battle invitation. They even announced this matter to the world, wanting to have a showdown with Ning Fan. The 100 sons of the Dark Race of the Dark Continent welcome the immortal monarch of Rain in a battle to the death. If we win, the grudges between our race and the ancient Chaos Great Emperor will be resolved. If we lose, the successor of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor will have to commit suicide in front of the world. The cause and effect will have nothing to do with our race. Both parties can invite helpers. There is no limit to the number of helpers. However, immortal emperors are not allowed to join. This is fair. If the dignified immortal monarch Rain, the disciple of the ancient Chaos Great Emperor, does not dare to fight, then you will be a coward. You will become the laughingstock of the world and the shame of the Eastern Heaven forever. Ning Fan frowned. He could not figure out why the Dark Race would suddenly send out a battle invitation. Moreover, they chose to do so at such a strange time after he entered the extreme Dan sacred region, and before he returned. The timing seemed to be a little hasty. If they really wanted to fight, why didn't they send out a battle invitation before he entered the extreme Dan sacred region? It gave people the feeling that the Dark Race suddenly had some plans after he entered the extreme Dan sacred region, and sent out a battle invitation in a hurry. Besides, is it necessary for the Dark Race to send their people who are below the immortal Emperor realm to fight him to the death? Ancient Chaos Great Emperor is on the verge of death. Once his Tao is gone, the Dark Race can easily suppress him with their great army and kill him. Instead of arranging this matter, it's better to stop Ancient Chaos Great Emperor from prolonging his life. The battle invitation seems to be unnecessary. It also seems like they have other plans. There are many suspicious points about the battle invitation. However, even if the Dark Race does have a plan, I will not avoid this battle. There are some things that can never be avoided just by avoiding them. It's better to fight back with a heavy punch. Of course, before dealing with this matter, I have more important things to do. Returning to the Divine Tomb and prolonging Master Ancient Chaos Great Emperor's life is the most important thing. Also, I need to get a high-quality Dao land as soon as possible and plant a soul seed of Qingling. The Godly Void Pavilion might have a good Dao land. If there isn't, I will buy it directly from the heaven-reaching sect. Ning Fan's eyes turned gloomy. He drove the black immortal cloud even faster, anxious to return home. Chapter 1090. Everyone was paying attention to the Battle of the Whitebird Alliance. Countless true immortal realm forces were secretly tracking the progress of this matter. They were waiting for the outcome of the battle between the Old Devil Three Fingers and the Whitebird Alliance before interfering and benefiting from it. Most of the true immortal realm forces thought that the Old Devil Three Fingers and the Whitebird Alliance would both suffer heavy losses. At the very least, the Old Devil Three Fingers would not win easily. After all, the Whitebird Alliance had a strong foundation. However, They did not expect the old devil Three Fingers to slaughter the entire White Bird Alliance with his own strength. His unstoppable manner shocked the people of the world. What was even more shocking was that the dignified Rain Immortal Monarch actually returned to the Eastern Heaven on the eve of the White Bird Alliance's destruction. Her landing point even coincidentally appeared in the White Bird Star region, and killed the unlucky old devil Three Fingers, with just a raise of her hand. All the true Immortal Realm forces that used secret techniques to investigate this place were shocked. Pieces of information were instantly spread across the entire Eastern Heaven using countless methods. The Rain Immortal Monarch had returned and killed an ancient immortal venerable. She was extremely powerful. To the Eastern Heaven, the death of an ancient immortal venerable was a huge matter. It would attract the attention of countless forces, and it would almost be listed as a huge storm in the Eastern Heaven. As a result, the Rain Immortal Monarch's devil prestige in the Eastern Heaven increased by a lot. When Ning Fan rode on the dark immortal cloud and traveled across the starry sky, none of the forces that he passed by along the way dared to stop him. All of them kept quiet out of fear. It was because the news had spread across the Eastern Heaven that the expert who rode on the dark cloud across the starry sky was Ning Fan. He was a terrifying existence who killed an ancient immortal venerable instantly. Ning Fan even used a rain technique to inform the Thousand-Year Sect and the Godly Void Pavilion of his return. Therefore, when Ning Fan returned to the Godly Void Pavilion on the cloud, there were already cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion waiting for him under the lead of Little Demoness. The current Little Demoness had already adapted to the improvement of her cultivation base, brought by the child relic. She was waiting for Ning Fan's return in the starry sky. Moreover, because of Xiangbozi's order, the two Divine Void Emperors had no choice but to send two immortal kings to be her personal bodyguards. After all, the little demon girl's current status was different. She was the chief pavilion master of the 4 pavilions of the Godly Void Pavilion, and she was highly regarded by Xiangbozi. Her status was even above some of the immortal kings of the Godly Void Pavilion. She was an important existence in the Godly Void Pavilion, second only to Xiangbozi and the 2 emperors of the Godly Void Pavilion. It was not strange for there to be an immortal king protecting her. The 2 immortal kings in charge of protecting the little demon girl were a pair of Dao companions. People called them the Randang Dao companions. They were guests who had just joined the Godly Void Pavilion half a year ago. The man was a black-robed scholar with a powerful cultivation of the eternal 4 tribulations. He was extraordinarily handsome, but his expression was cold and serious. He used an unknown ancient lamp as his magic treasure, and was known as the Ancient Lamp Immortal Monarch. He had not used his common name for many years. The woman was a beautiful woman in a dark green palace dress. It was said that her original body was not human, but a mutated banana that had attained Tao. She was known as the Banana Fairy, and she was in harmony with the Ancient Lamp Immortal Monarch. She was an immortal monarch who had just broken through the eternal 3 tribulations more than 1,000,000 years ago. Because this pair of Tao companions needed to protect the little demoness from time to time, they were also waiting for Ning Fan's return here with the little demoness. The 2 of them did not have much of an opinion about protecting the little demoness. After all, she was the chief pavilion lord of the Godly Void Pavilion. Protecting her was the duty of any divine void realm cultivator. Having a good relationship with the little demoness would also be beneficial for them, as they had just arrived in the Godly Void Pavilion. However, they were a little dissatisfied with the fact that these 2 great immortal kings were waiting for Ning Fan's return at the border of this desolate starry sky. In their eyes, no matter how famous Ning Fan's devil reputation was, he was just an immortal venerate from the ancient times. It seemed to be a little condescending for them to welcome a mere immortal venerate with their status as immortal kings. Even if Ning Fan and the little demoness had an affair since a long time ago according to the rumors, and Xiangbozi thought highly of him, the 2 of them still felt a little unfair. They thought that it was beneath their dignity to do such a thing. However, they did not dare to leave the little demoness waiting for Ning Fan alone. I say, younger sister Chief Pavilion Lord, you have just received the news from the White Bird Star region, and you have already come to the border of the Godly Void Starry Sky to wait for the Rain Lord. Isn't it a little too early? You should know that the White Bird Star region is more than a few thousand star regions away from here. Even if that brother Qing of yours travels at full speed, I'm afraid it will take him quite a few days to return. After all, he is just an immortal venerate from the ancient times. His speed is limited. We might have to wait here for quite a few days. Banana Fairy complained. Madam is right. Even if I travel at full speed, I will need at least 3 days to return. With that Rain Lord speed, he will need at least 5 to 6 days. If there are any delays on the way, it is also possible for him to return after 10 to 15 days. The ancient lamp immortal king said with a frown. When he mentioned Ning Fan, there was a hint of contempt in his tone. I'm sorry to trouble the two of you to wait for little Fanfan here with me. If the two of you don't want to wait, just go back. The same goes for the others. You don't have to deliberately stay here to protect me. I will wait for him here alone. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's situation is getting worse and worse. Now he has even turned into a wisp of smoke. I'm very worried about what he will do when he finds out about this. I want to personally tell him this grievous news. The little demoness said with a frown. After hearing what was said, Randang and his companions sighed. They sighed because the fact that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was slowly approaching the end of his Tao was no longer a secret in the Godly Void Pavilion. It was also not a secret in the entire Eastern Heaven. So what if he ran amok in the ancient times? So what if he was one of the 10 great immortal emperors of the Purple Dough Immortal Domain? Once he dies, his illustrious reputation will turn into dust. Cultivators of our generation should really enjoy themselves while they can. Once Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's Tao is gone, I'm afraid Rain Lord, who is the successor of Ancient Chaos, will be in an even more difficult situation. The Dark Race has already sent out the war invitation. Whether your brother Qing accepts the challenge or not, it actually doesn't matter. I think it's better for the Chief Pavilion Master to draw a clear line with that Rain Lord as soon as possible. Moreover, you should also advise Senior Xiang not to treat the foundation of the Godly Void Pavilion as a child's play. I really don't understand why Senior Xiang would value a mere immortal venerate so much. Is it just because he is the successor of Ancient Chaos? He didn't hesitate to bet the entire foundation of the Godly Void Pavilion to go against that unreachable dark race. This isn't a wise move. Banana Fairy's complaint deepened. Before joining the Godly Void Pavilion, both of them did not know how resolute the Godly Void Pavilion was in supporting Ning Fan. After joining the Godly Void Pavilion, she only knew that because of Xiang Bozi's order, the entire Godly Void Pavilion would bet everything to protect Ning Fan. Even if they were to go against the dark race in public, they would not hesitate. Originally, the two of them joined the Godly Void Pavilion just to find a big tree to rely on. However, it seemed like the big tree they found was not very sturdy. They actually wanted to go against the colossal dark race. Wasn't that just courting death? It seemed like joining the Godly Void Pavilion was a wrong decision. However, once they got involved in this cause and effect, it would not be easy to get out of it. They could only brace themselves and continue on. At this moment, both of them could only hope that Xiang Bozi would change his mind and give up on going against the dark race, and giving up on protecting Ning Fan. Actually, this was not only their hope. It was also the hope of countless cultivators in the Godly Void Pavilion. In the Godly Void Pavilion, from the Divine Void Emperor duo to the ordinary cultivators, most of them were not willing to take the risk of being annihilated and fight against the colossal dark race for Ning Fan alone. Unfortunately, the person who had the most authority in the Godly Void Pavilion was Xiang Bozi. Others could advise him against his decision, but they could not directly interfere. Chief Pavilion Master should really consider this matter carefully. There are more than 10,000 good men in the world. Why must Chief Pavilion Master hang himself on this tree? Moreover, this tree is going to wither soon. It is not wise to continue maintaining a relationship with him. Even though Chief Pavilion Master has already given himself to this person. To us immortal cultivators, we do not care about such minor details. As long as Chief Pavilion Master is willing, I believe that there are men with boundless prospects in the 4 pavilions who are willing to replace this person and become your Tao companion. If you continue to have a relationship with this person, once the dark race. Alright. The two of you don't need to persuade me anymore. Be it me or Senior Xiang, we all have our own decisions. We don't need the two of you to interfere with our thoughts. Especially me. I have already prepared myself to die in the hands of the dark race. If I die together with him, I will have no regrets. Of course, I also don't want you two to die together with him. If little Fanfan and the dark race really reach the point where one of them is dead, I can request Senior Xiang to allow you two to leave the Godly Void Pavilion and seek refuge. The two of them were speechless for a while. They were a little reluctant to really leave the Godly Void Pavilion. Ever since they joined the Godly Void Pavilion, the two of them had obtained many benefits from Xiang Bozi. Suddenly, the sound of clouds and mist piercing through the sky came from countless starry skies. Little Demoness' face immediately lit up with joy. In the midst of the piercing sound, a white-robed silhouette was riding on the rolling dark clouds and approaching them continuously. As expected of little Fanfan, he actually rushed back from the White Bird Star region so quickly. It has only been a few hours. Little Demoness squinted her eyes and said with a smile. Indeed, this person's speed of returning from the White Bird Star region is a little too fast. Both Randang and his Dao companion were surprised. This was obviously different from the time they had predicted. When their gazes fell upon the dark clouds below Ningfan's feet, their expressions changed and were filled with disbelief. With Ningfan's concealment, ordinary people might not be able to see the grade of the dark clouds at first glance. However, with their eyesight, they could easily tell that it was a Xiantian grade escaping treasure. No wonder Ningfan could travel across thousands of starry skies in just a few hours. A Xiantian grade escaping treasure. How extravagant! Even an immortal emperor might not have such a grade of escaping treasure. Then both of their gazes fell upon Ningfan. In the beginning, they more or less looked down on Ningfan. It was the pride of being an immortal king. However, when they met Ningfan's gaze, their eyes actually felt unbearable pain, as if they were being pierced by flying needles. They could not look him in the eye. What a sharp gaze! It actually made them immortal kings, unable to look him in the eye. Even some sixth tribulation immortal emperors did not have such a sharp gaze. Why does this Rain Monarch have such a sharp aura? Even if they heard that Ningfan killed Old Devil Three Fingers with just a raise of his hand, they would not be moved. However, at this moment, their hearts were in turmoil. This Rain Immortal Monarch is definitely not as simple as the rumors say. Are you waiting for me here? Ningfan withdrew the sharpness in his eyes and turned to the little Demoness. With a smile on his face, he flew towards her and carried her onto his cloud. Then he stroked her silky hair. His intimate action did not seem to be a taboo to the Divine Void Realm cultivators at the scene. Suddenly, there were many friendly laughter, whistles and coughs in the surroundings. It seemed like everyone was very supportive of little Demoness, the chief pavilion master, and their relationship was not bad. No matter how black-bellied the little Demoness was, she still blushed and rolled her eyes at Ningfan. Then, she thought of the matter regarding the ancient Chaos Immortal Emperor, and felt a little depressed. She did not know how to speak to Ningfan, so she hesitated. Ningfan understood what little Demoness wanted to say and sighed. Don't worry about me. I already know about the matter of Master Ancient Chaos. Let's not talk about it for now. I will deal with it myself. As for these two fellow Taoists, it seems like they want to find a new companion for you. Hee, the two of you actually have the mood to meddle in the relationship of other people. Don't you think you are meddling too much? Ningfan's gaze turned to Randang Taoist couple. His eyes regained their sharpness. An invisible pressure turned into a gale that swept across, causing Randang Taoist couple to feel a heavy pressure once again. Before he arrived at the Godly Void Pavilion, Ningfan's rain sense had already covered the entire place. He heard every single word about the two of them persuading little Demoness to find a new lover. Naturally, he was a little unhappy. Any man who was not at home would be unhappy when his neighbor persuaded his wife to have an affair. Of course, considering the position of the Godly Void Pavilion, he would not really do anything to them. At most, he would just give them a warning. Whether the people of the Godly Void Pavilion were willing to stand on his side to fight against the dark race was their freedom. However, it was another matter to destroy the relationship between him and little Demoness. Seeing is believing. I didn't expect Rain Lord's gaze to be so sharp. However, you should know that there are many things in this world that cannot be achieved with just momentum. Humans should have self-awareness. If you are humble, don't cling to the nobles. If you are weak, don't go head-on against the strong. When it's time to lower your head, lower your head. When it's time to let go, let go. That's how a qualified cultivator should be. I have long heard of Rain Lord's great name. I want to exchange some pointers with Rain Lord. I wonder if Rain Lord will give me face or not. The ancient lamp immortal king who was withstanding Ningfan's heavy pressure suddenly shouted coldly. The ancient lamp in his hand immediately shone with countless rays of light, forcing Ningfan's pressure back. As soon as the pressure disappeared, he heaved a sigh of relief inwardly. At the same time, he also became angry from embarrassment. As a four-tribulation immortal king, he actually could not withstand the gaze of an ancient immortal venerate. Thus, he wanted to exchange pointers with Ningfan to regain some face. He concluded that Ningfan's pressure was just a little strange, and his eyes were a little sharp. In terms of methods and strength, he was certainly not a four-tribulation immortal king like him. After all, an immortal king and an immortal venerate were two completely different concepts. Moreover, he was not a third tribulation immortal king, but a fourth tribulation immortal king. In the entire Eastern Heaven, who would dare to disrespect him? Even immortal emperors would politely address him as fellow Taoist when they see him. Almost at the same time when the ancient lamp immortal king issued a challenge to Ningfan, Ningfan sensed some obscure spirit sense coming from the headquarters of the Godly Void Pavilion. Those spirit senses were all existences from the ancient times, including the Divine Void Emperor and the Divine Void Emperor. It seems like these people are very interested in the ancient lamp immortal king's challenge. Ningfan also sensed that many ancient spirit senses of the Divine Void Pavilion lingered on the dark immortal cloud beneath his feet. It seemed like they were also very interested in this innate fleeing treasure. Of course, with his relationship with Xiangbozi, Ningfan was not worried that the people here would kill him and seize his treasure. Even with his current strength, he was not afraid. As for the challenge from the ancient lamp immortal king, he was even less afraid. However, the others did not think the same way. Husband, Rain Lord is just an ancient immortal venerable. You are a fourth tribulation immortal king. Isn't it a bit like bullying the weak? Banana Fairy said worriedly. She noticed that the little demoness was obviously displeased after the ancient lamp immortal king said that. Both of them had just arrived at the Godly Void Pavilion not long ago. Their foundation was still shallow. It was not wise to offend the little demoness too much. Her words echoed the thoughts of many of the Divine Void cultivators present. Many of them were unwilling to get involved in the dispute between Ningfan and the Dark Race, but they did not hate Ningfan. On the contrary, many of them admired Ningfan for his rise in Eastern Heaven. Many of them cursed the shamelessness of the ancient lamp immortal king in their hearts. He actually dared to challenge an ancient immortal venerable, with his fourth tribulation immortal king cultivation base. Of course, no one dared to say such words directly to avoid offending the ancient lamp immortal king. Don't worry, my wife. I know what I'm doing. I said that I'm asking for advice and that's it. I won't hurt Rain Lord in the slightest. The ancient lamp immortal king stood with his hands clasped behind his back. The aura of a fourth tribulation immortal king swept across the place. Many of the weaker cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion were directly blown away by this aura. Countless of them were shocked by the strength of a fourth tribulation immortal king. Of course, under the deliberate control of the ancient lamp immortal king, no one was injured. I'm sorry. The Godly Void Pavilion is Senior Xiang's home. I don't want to cause trouble here. I won't accept your challenge. Ningfan's face was calm and he shook his head. However, at the next moment, an even stronger aura was released from Ningfan's body, directly crushing the aura of the ancient lamp immortal king. What kind of aura was that filled with killing intent? What kind of profound baleful chi was that? Under that kind of baleful chi, one after another, the Divine Void Realm cultivators felt suffocated. Their hearts were beating wildly and blood was surging in their chests. It was the biggest shock they had ever experienced in their lives. Even Ronding's Dao companion was drenched in cold sweat under that kind of aura. Her body was trembling uncontrollably. That trembling was the instinctive judgment of their body that had been tempered for a long time towards danger. They would not even tremble when facing some sixth tribulation immortal emperors. However, Ning Fan's baleful qi alone was enough to make them feel fear. It doesn't look like a fake baleful qi. It's a baleful qi that could even kill immortal emperors. Moreover, it's not just one immortal emperor. But how is this possible? How could this young man kill immortal emperors? This is absolutely impossible. Besides, I have never heard of any immortal emperors falling in Eastern Heaven. Could it be that he's an immortal emperor from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region? But it's also impossible. After all, he's an immortal emperor. In the history of Eastern Heaven, Sun Lua was the only one who could kill an immortal emperor as an immortal king. He was the strongest devil in Eastern Heaven. As for an immortal venerate, there had never been anyone who could kill an immortal emperor. Of course, if you still want to fight, you can come and find me another day. I will find a chance to accept your challenge. Ning Fan withdrew his aura and smiled faintly. Then he cupped his fists at the Divine Void Realm cultivators who were waiting for him. Riding on a dark immortal cloud, he brought little Demonis away and went straight to the Divine Tomb. Ronding's Dao companion, whose back was already drenched in sweat, was left on the spot. She looked at the direction where Ning Fan left. She was bewildered, but in the end, she did not dare to find fault with him. All of the ancient cultivators of the Godly Void Pavilion who were observing this place were stunned by Ning Fan's baleful qi. Some of them instinctively chose not to believe it. Even the Divine Void Emperor and Eighth Tribulation Great Emperors who had been through many trials and tribulations did not believe that Ning Fan could be so heaven-defying and kill an immortal emperor. If the group of Eastern Heaven cultivators who hid in the sacred mountain returns, they would probably tell them about Ning Fan's heaven-defying achievements in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. Unfortunately, those people had yet to return. Those who returned were all juniors who stayed in the outer region of the Sacred Region, and did not dare to enter the inner region. Thus, they had no idea about the series of major events that happened in the Great Humble Tribe. Therefore, no one in Eastern Heaven knew what Ning Fan had done in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. If they knew, Immortal King Gu Deng would probably not dare to provoke Ning Fan, even if he was given 10,000 times more courage. Has your temper become better? I thought you would beat Gu Deng up. On the dark immortal cloud, little Demonis said with surprise. In your heart, am I the kind of person who acts recklessly regardless of the situation? As long as these people don't cross my bottom line, I won't make things difficult for Senior Xiang. Ning Fan flicked little Demonis' forehead in annoyance, causing her to roll her eyes. Then, she became interested in the crow heavenly dog beside Ning Fan. What kind of dog is this? Can you give it to me to play with? You're too black-bellied. You'll play with it until it dies. I promise I won't dissect it. I'm just curious about what kind of dog it is. I've never seen it in Eastern Heaven before. The bottom line of raising a pet is dissection, huh? Later, I'll tell you about my experience in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, and the origin of this dog. Alright. Come to my room later, and we'll talk through the night. Talking through the night, huh? I have no objections. Ning Fan went all the way to the Divine Tomb. Even though the movement of the dark immortal cloud was huge, the patrolling cultivators along the way did not stop him when they saw Ning Fan's arrival. Ning Fan had already become a frequent visitor of the Godly Void Pavilion. Xiang Bozi did not sweep the ground outside the tomb. Instead, he stayed inside the tomb. At the bottom of the Divine Tomb, Xiang Bozi stood alone outside the ancient messy tomb palace in silence. When Ning Fan entered this place, what he saw was Xiang Bozi's lonely and bitter background. Little friend, have you already returned from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region? It seems like you've gained quite a lot from this trip. Judging from your strength, I'm afraid you can already fight against some Sixth Tribulation immortal emperors. Xiang Bozi turned around with a hint of surprise. Even though his eyes were blind, the information he received through his spirit sense made him deeply aware of what kind of unimaginable changes Ning Fan had undergone in just a year. Even a quasi-sage realm expert like him could not see through those changes completely. Some of Ning Fan's strength that was related to deities was even beyond his understanding. I've indeed gained quite a lot from this trip. However, the price I have to pay is also huge. I think I'll need to look for another heaven-opening stone to repair my magic treasure soon. You need another heaven-opening stone? If that's the case, I'll help you look for it, and see which old man still has another heaven-opening stone. Thank you, Senior. Among the many gains I've gained during this trip, there are also some gifts that I plan to give to Senior later. Oh, you have something good for me again? You've already given this old man a lot of benefits. You should keep these things for your own use. Increasing your own strength is more important. It's fine. We'll talk about this later. I want to check on Master Luangu's condition first. My condolences, young friend. Xiang Bozi let out a bitter sigh. Presently, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had dissipated to the point where only a wisp of smoke remained, and he couldn't even send out a trace of his consciousness. Everyone knew that Ancient Chaos did not have long to live. Xiang Bozi did not think that Ning Fan would have a way to save Ancient Chaos, just by going to the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. He did not think that Ning Fan could do something that even the progenitor of the Godly Void Pavilion could not do. However, he did not want to destroy Ning Fan's confidence. My condolences. Ning Fan's heart felt slightly heavy. To be honest, even if he raised the little cat to adulthood and obtained the spring water of the South Sea during this trip, he still did not have 100% confidence in prolonging Ancient Chaos life. The only thing he could do was to do his best and leave the rest to fate. He left the little demoness and Xiang Bozi outside the Tomb Palace, and entered Ancient Chaos's Tomb Palace alone. In the depths of the Tomb Palace, there was a wisp of smoke that could no longer be seen clearly. It was the smoke that Great Emperor Ancient Chaos had turned into when he was at his weakest point. Master, I'm back. I've only recognized 3 masters in my life. Master Han led me into the path of cultivation, and taught me how to be a human. Master Zido helped me to recognize my true nature. As for you, you gave me the cultivation method and means to fight until now. Even though you didn't personally teach me the yin-yang locket, I don't dare to forget the inheritance of my master, and the grace of you teaching me the chaotic loop art. I don't know if I can prolong your life today, but I will try my best. Ning Fan flipped his hand and took out a golden bottle that was sealed with countless layers of seals. Inside the golden bottle was a drop of 9 raccoons' soul blood which had a massive qi. Among all living things in the world, there were 5 types of 5th-grade Supreme Yang items that could prolong the Tao extinction. The first was the primordial clear lotus leaf, the second was the ancient Tao immortal apricot, the third was the ancient desolate mulberry tree, the fourth was the 9 raccoon soul blood, and the fifth was the Saint Defire's Qi. Ning Fan could still remember how weak little Mao was after she forced out a drop of her soul blood that day. At the same time, he owed little Mao some karma. He should make it up to her in the future. Each person could only use 1 drop of 9 raccoon soul blood. This item could only be used to prolong one's life once. The length of one's lifespan depended on the person's physical condition and cultivation base. If a mortal consumes the 9 raccoon soul blood before they die of old age, they could almost become immortal and live as long as the heavens. However, if they are immortal cultivators, the higher their cultivation base, the worse the effect would be. Ning Fan pondered for a while. After a long time, he activated the power of this drop of soul blood, using the 9 raccoon finger art that little Mao taught him. All of a sudden, countless sparkling and translucent light threads flew out from the soul blood, and went into the wisp of smoke in the Tomb Palace. Thump thump. Thump thump. The sound of a heartbeat could be heard from the wisp of smoke. Thump thump. Thump thump. The sound of the heartbeat became stronger and stronger. In the end, just the sound of the heartbeat alone nearly made the entire world at the bottom of the divine tomb unstable. This was a powerful heartbeat that could only be produced by the ancient chaos realm when he was at his peak. Just the sound of a heartbeat had the power to destroy heaven and earth. A speck of dust could fill the ocean, and a blade of grass could cut down the sun and moon. These were the words of a peerless being like the one in front of them. The sound of the heartbeat reverberated across heaven and earth. Then, it rushed out of the divine tomb, and covered the entire divine void starry sky. The sound of the heartbeat continued to spread, spreading through one galaxy after another, through layer after layer of the void, all the way to a dark starry sky. At this moment, the members of the dark race who were hiding in this starry sky felt the greatest fear they had ever felt. Every time the sound of the heartbeat became louder, the bodies of the old monsters of the dark race would tremble even more violently. Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. This is the sound of a Saint Realm heartbeat that only a 7 orifices ancient god could possess. Is Great Emperor Ancient Chaos going to be resurrected? This is impossible. In the past, he was personally killed by the supreme existence of the Great Blue Tribulation clan. How is it possible for him to be resurrected? If it wasn't because immortal sovereign Zido couldn't save Ancient Chaos, his soul wouldn't have returned to the illusory dream and lingered in the void. It's impossible for anyone in this world to resurrect him. But why? No. It's not resurrection. Ancient Chaos' fate hasn't changed. His future will still be the end of his Tao. However, someone has used a heaven-defying method to delay that day. Impossible. This is absolutely impossible. There are only 5 things in this world that can suppress the damage done by the supreme existence of the Tribulation clan and prolong Ancient Chaos' life. None of those 5 things exist in the illusory dream world. This is absolutely impossible. But this heartbeat is definitely not fake. Wait, why did the heartbeat become weaker again? Could it be that someone tried to prolong Ancient Chaos' life but failed? Haha. It's good that he failed. It's good that he failed. All of a sudden, the members of the dark race who were in chaos gradually calmed down. It was just a false alarm. Inside the tomb palace, Ningfan's chi was weak. He had consumed a great amount of energy. He forced himself to stand upright and stared at the illusion of the tomb palace of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos with a solemn expression. No, it was no longer accurate to describe Great Emperor Ancient Chaos as an illusion of the tomb palace. The current Ancient Chaos was no longer an illusion after being saved by the soul blood of Jiuli and the spring water of the South Sea. The illusory figure that was like a wisp of smoke continued to solidify. Eventually, it turned into a real body of flesh and blood. Moreover, after the body of flesh and blood was formed, the body of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was still going through changes. In the beginning, the body of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos was a shriveled old man with white hair and a skeleton-like body. His flesh and blood had completely dried up and his skin was devoid of any luster. He sat in midair with his legs crossed without moving. His body was like a withered old tree. If it wasn't for his beating heart, one could almost think that he was a dead man. Then, traces of life force began to appear in his body. It was like hundreds of rivers flowing into the ocean. It was directly absorbed from heaven and earth. It was extremely domineering, ignoring the limitations of the laws of heaven and earth. Gradually, the flesh and blood of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos began to regain its functions. The wrinkles on his skin also disappeared little by little. His white hair turned black. He no longer looked like an old man who was past his prime. Instead, he looked like a middle-aged overlord. Each and every heartbeat that could shake the great Tao shocked Ningfan. Every trace of blood essence under the flesh of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos made Ningfan feel that his chi was boundless and invincible. Every time he breathed, it was as if he could devour the sun and moon. When his eyelids moved, it was as if a giant dragon was about to wake up. Ningfan had an intuition. If Great Emperor Ancient Chaos opens his eyes and returns to the world, the chi force he exudes when he opens his eyes would be powerful enough to destroy the entire divine tomb. His heart was filled with excitement. He did not know how long his actions could prolong the life of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. However, it seemed like it was still effective. However, no matter how long he waited, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos did not open his eyes. Even the heartbeat that reverberated throughout heaven and earth gradually calmed down. In the end, it even strangely stopped beating. The thumping sound between heaven and earth immediately subsided. In the end, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos just maintained his body of flesh and blood, sitting cross-legged in midair of the tomb palace. He seemed to be alive but not dead. He did not wake up nor did he undergo any further changes to his body. It seems like I still failed. Even the soul blood of Jiu Li doesn't have any effect. Ningfan let out a long sigh. He could no longer suppress the feeling of weakness that came from treating Great Emperor Ancient Chaos. His legs became weak, and he fainted on the ground. At the moment when he fainted, Great Emperor Ancient Chaos's heartbeat jumped again. Then, it calmed down again out of some kind of waiting. Now was not the time for him to wake up. He must make good use of the short life that Ning Fan had bought for him just so that he could eliminate the greatest hidden enemy of the Eastern Heaven at the critical moment. He did not care what those existences wanted to do to the Eastern Heaven. However, if they dared to plot against his successor, he would let everyone know the consequences of bullying a disciple of the Lai Yuan sect who was known for protecting his own people. Chapter 1091. When he opened his eyes again, Ning Fan was no longer in the divine tomb. Instead, he was sent to the chief pavilion lord residence of the Little Demoness. Due to the overdraft of his magic power, he had been unconscious for several days. After he woke up, he returned to the tomb of the god of sin to study the ancient Chaos Emperor's condition, and tried many methods. Unfortunately, no matter what he did, he was unable to awaken the ancient Chaos Emperor, who already possessed a body of flesh and blood. The aura of the ancient Chaos Heavenly Monarch's fleshly body was vast and boundless, but there was not the slightest trace of vitality flowing within it. It was as if he was alive yet not alive, as if he was dead yet not dead. At first, Ning Fan thought that he had made a mistake in prolonging Luangu's life, which led to this result. However, Xiang Bozi did not think so. Xiang Bozi was a quasi-saint realm expert. He was a living fossil who had lived for countless years. His experience was not something Ning Fan could compare with. From Xiang Bozi's point of view, the ancient Chaos Thearch did not fail to prolong his life. Instead, after he succeeded, for some unknown reason, the ancient Chaos Thearchas will took the lead and concealed all the vitality in his physical body, not letting any of it leak out. If the ancient Chaos Great Emperor was willing, he could even open his eyes right now and return to the cultivation world with absolute strength. However, he did not do so and chose to live like a turtle. Senior, what you mean is that my master is in a state of suspended animation controlled by his own will for some reason. He could wake up at any time, but he doesn't want to wake up now? Ning Fan was surprised. It's like this. Then why does Senior think my master is unwilling to awaken? I think the ancient Chaos Great Emperor must have his own considerations. If he wakes up now, he can stand in front of you, and the Dark Ones won't dare bully you anymore. The primordial Chaos Great Emperor, who was known to protect his own disciples, did not even bother to protect them. Instead, he chose to fake his death. This was definitely not a matter of ignoring the plight of his disciples. I suspect that the ancient Chaos Martial Monarch is planning to awaken at a crucial moment. At that moment, it might be even more serious than the dark race bullying you. Although you've extended ancient Chaos Great Emperor's life, according to this old man's observation, ancient Chaos Great Emperor's fate wasn't extended by much. Therefore, we can't rule out the possibility that he wanted to use his remaining lifespan for a critical moment. This speculation has its basis. Ning Fan nodded, agreeing with Xiang Bozi's speculation. He didn't know why the ancient Chaos Heavenly Emperor decided to continue faking his death. This was the decision of Great Emperor Ancient Chaos himself, and not caused by external forces. As long as Ning Fan knew about this, he would not interfere with Ancient Chaos's decision. He firmly believed that if he was forced into a corner by the Dark Race, the Ancient Chaos Great Emperor, who was faking his death, would not leave him to die. On that day, the sound of ancient Chaos heartbeat when he woke up could be heard across the entire Eastern Heaven. Now, the news that Ning Fan had failed to prolong ancient Chaos life was widely spread in the Eastern Heaven. However, no one knew that it was not a failure but a success. That was to say, ancient Chaos's fake death had fooled everyone, including the Dark Race and some of the people in the dark. Little friend, you mustn't spread the news of ancient Chaos Great Emperor's resurrection. This old man doesn't know what ancient Chaos Great Emperor is planning to do with this matter, but if you spread this news, it might ruin ancient Chaos Great Emperor's plan. Xiang Bozi said solemnly. Don't worry, Senior. Junior understands the gravity of the situation. Moreover, this Junior has some conjectures in my heart. The reason why my Master Turtle Breath faked his death might be related to the Devil Conferral Summit. This junior feels that the Devil Conferral Summit that had been annihilated in the long river of history might be reappearing in the world soon. My master might be trying to prevent this from happening. That's why he continued to feign his death. The Devil Conferral Summit will reappear in the world? Little friend, you're not joking, right? Is this really possible? Xiang Bozi's expression was solemn. In the eyes of the world, the Devil Conferral Summit had already been destroyed along with the ancient heavenly court and the demon manor in the great chaos of heaven and earth. However, Ning Fan's words did not seem to be baseless. Could it be that this junior has forgotten that there was an ancient great devil from the Devil Conferral Summit who directly descended to the divine tomb with his devil cavity? That great devil is probably the only survivor of the Devil Conferral Summit. After countless years of seclusion, he finally resurfaced. However, this time, when this junior entered the Supreme Pill Sacred region, I met another quasi-saint of the Devil Conferral Summit. Moreover, that quasi-saint even joined hands with the dark race. I don't know what they are plotting. That quasi-saint is called Baizu. What? Taoist Baizu is actually still alive today. The appearance of a great expert from the Devil Conferral Summit is just a coincidence. If there are two of them, it can't be regarded as a coincidence anymore. Could it be that the Devil Conferral Summit was not completely annihilated like the ancient heavenly court in the past? Moreover, this devil is even on the same side as the dark race. What are the Devil Conferral Summit and the dark race trying to do? Even with Xiang Bozi's quasi-saint realm mental state, he was still greatly shaken by Ning Fan's words. When he thought about how the ancient chaos heavenly emperor deliberately faked his death, Xiang Bozi faintly felt that something big was about to happen in the eastern heaven. Then he and Ning Fan talked about this matter for a long time. However, neither of them could determine whether this matter was really related to the Devil Conferral Summit or not. Fortunately, the matter of prolonging Luangu's life was barely resolved. Ning Fan did not stay in the Godly Void Pavilion for long. After giving Xiang Bozi a gift to express his gratitude, he left the divine tomb. Xiang Bozi had always taken care of immortal Emperor Ancient Chaos and the little Demoness, as well as helped Ning Fan. Ning Fan would always remember them in his heart. When others treat him well, he would always repay them tenfold. Last time, he'd given the Bodhi virtue pills he obtained from annihilating the pill sect to Xiang Bozi. This time he gave away half of the extreme yang water he had obtained in the extreme Dan sanctuary. Due to many reasons, Xiang Bozi's path to the second-rank quasi-sage stage was severed. Ning Fan planned to use many supreme treasures to pave the path that Xiang Bozi had lost. Because of Ning Fan's words, Xiang Bozi was worried about the future of the Eastern Heaven. Thus, he did not immediately go to see the gift that Ning Fan gave him. The gift was a jade bottle. There were layers of seals on the outside of the bottle. Without breaking the seals, no one would know what was inside the bottle. A long time after Ning Fan left, Xiang Bozi let out a long sigh and suppressed his worries. Then he smiled and fiddled with the jade bottle that Ning Fan gave him. Previously, Ning Fan had said that he had gained a lot from this trip and wanted to give him some gifts. He was very curious about what kind of good things this little fellow had obtained this time to give him. Unfortunately, ever since I consumed the Bodhi virtue pill, I stored the medicinal power in my body and slowly refined it during my daily cultivation. Gradually, I gained something. The bottleneck of the second-rank quasi-sage stage that I could not see in the past also became clearer in my mind. To the current me, most of the heavenly ingredients and earthly treasures in the illusionary world are no longer useful to me. However, this item is more or less a token of appreciation from that little fellow. He actually remembered an old man like me after making a trip to the extreme pill sacred region. This token of appreciation is much more precious than any treasures. Xiang Bozi smiled and broke the layers of seals on the jade bottle. Then he scanned the jade bottle with his spirit sense. All of a sudden, his originally calm smile turned into an uncontrollable shock. His hand trembled and nearly dropped the jade bottle on the ground. The item inside the jade bottle was not useless. It was an unimaginably large amount of extreme yang water. More than half of the jade bottle was filled with liquid extreme yang water. How could this be possible? This item was enough to pave his path to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. To any quasi-sage stage cultivator, it was a great temptation. This item was too precious. If the news of this item gets out, it would definitely make existences like Musang jealous. They might even turn hostile and snatch it from him. Little friend Ning, isn't your gift a little too valuable? Xiang Bozi smiled bitterly. This gift was already so precious that he could not bear to reject it. Deep in his heart, he was excited about obtaining the extreme yang water, because it meant that he really had a glimmer of hope to advance to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. If he rejects the gift, he would seem hypocritical. Moreover, he faintly felt that he could not see through the current Ning Fan. This young man was getting closer and closer to the level of a supreme existence like him, step by step. The younger generation is really going to surpass us in time. Moreover, at this moment, Xiang Bozi had a great understanding about karma. Something like karma could not be avoided all the time. Since he treated Ning Fan well, Ning Fan returned the favor by giving him the hope to advance to the second-rank quasi-sage stage. As long as I persist in the cause that I believe in and not avoid it, the effect that I need will eventually come. As for the extreme yang water, Ning Fan did not plan to take it for his own use. He was still too far away from the quasi-sage stage. Thus, he did not attach much importance to this item. However, he did not like to support his enemies for no reason. As for what Taoist Musang said about the quasi-sage stage opening its eyes, he also threw it to the back of his mind, and no longer paid attention to it. After all, he had already figured out some of his doubts about opening his eyes through his trip to the extreme pill sacred region. The thing that he once doubted was actually the karma between him and the sword ancestor. The extreme yang water that he threw into the spatial turbulence that day had been lost and recovered. Thus, the amount of extreme yang water in his body became abundant again. He did not plan to give such a good item to people like Musang who were just ordinary friends. If he wanted to give it to someone, he would give it to someone who was on the same level as him. In Ning Fan's heart, Xiang Bozi, who had done him a great favor, was no different from a friend who had gone through life and death with him. Thus, he did not feel any heartache when he gave him half of the extreme yang water. As for the remaining half, he planned to give it to Zhongyu. Currently, Zhongyu's cultivation base was at the half-step quasi-sage realm. Moreover, because he had taken over the body of a quasi-sage realm expert, he could use a small portion of the power of a quasi-sage realm expert with his physical body. Thus, he already possessed the qualifications to truly advance to the quasi-sage realm. Zhongyu had sacrificed herself for him time and time again. Moreover, Zhongyu had now become one of his many women. Thus, he naturally would not feel heartache when he gave something to his woman. In the past, Zhongyu did not have enough resources to break through to the quasi-sage stage. However, now that Ning Fan was here, he would pave the way for Zhongyu to attain the quasi-sage stage and provide her with everything she needs. After leaving the divine tomb, Ning Fan went to look for the little demoness. The two of them went to the treasury of the godly void pavilion together. Using the identity of the little demoness, Ning Fan bought quite a lot of supreme-grade Dao soil, which made the Divine Void Emperor and Divine Void Emperor feel heartache. A few days later, Ning Fan returned to the Qianqiu sect. On the same day that he returned to the sect, he sent a message transmitting flying sword to the Slaughter Palace, seemingly inquiring about something. The current Qianqiu sect was no longer a small sect. Under the management of Zhao Dyer and the other women, and under the protection of 2Mo, Tai Ye and the others, it continuously absorbed the subordinates of the Eastern Heaven, and had already become another huge force in the Eastern Heaven. Its foundation was not any weaker than the other immortal venerate forces. There were also countless forces of the Devil Dao who traveled thousands of li and abandoned their homeland to seek refuge in the Qianqiu sect. That's right. It was a pilgrimage. The current Qianqiu sect had already become the holy land of the Devil Dao in the Eastern Heaven. This time, Ning Fan's return was very high profile. He did not conceal anything at all. All the disciples of the Qianqiu sect were excited because of his return. Ever since the Dark Races issued the declaration of war, the entire Eastern Heaven was waiting to see the miserable end of the Qianqiu sect. Only the disciples of the Qianqiu sect firmly believe that as long as their sect master returns, Those shitty dark races are not worth fearing at all. They can destroy all of them. It was a kind of fanatical and blind worship of Ningfan. It could be said that those who were willing to stay in the Qianqiu sect despite knowing that Ningfan was being targeted by the dark races were all his loyal followers and fanatical believers. There were no exceptions. Ningfan had risen too quickly in the Eastern Heaven. He was too domineering. From an insignificant person to the peak. From the first step of a tough battle to the second step of sweeping the enemy. All kinds of experiences made countless devil cultivators fascinated. Their blood boiled and they worshipped Ningfan to the point of fanaticism. Even though Ningfan's achievements in the Eastern Heaven were obviously not as good as Sun Luo's, there were already many disciples who secretly worshipped Ningfan as the #1 devil in the Eastern Heaven. From their point of view, putting aside strength, which devil cultivator would dare to go against a colossus like the dark races with their own strength? There was only Ningfan. He dared to use his insignificance to shake the powerful, and shake the heavens and earth without fear. It was not an exaggeration to call Ningfan the #1 devil in the Eastern Heaven. Devils do not have to be strong, but they must be domineering. If one's heart is full of scruples, why not change to another cultivation path, and become a devil lord? Moreover, there were many dazzling halos above Ningfan's head. It made all the rational cultivators who were not fanatical about Ningfan think highly of him. The disciple of the Slaughter Palace, the inheritor of ancient chaos and the quasi-saint of the godly void pavilion are good friends despite the difference in age. When these halos were added to Ningfan's head, it made him shine brighter than many of the great sovereigns in the Eastern Heaven. Welcome, Sect Master. This is great. Sect Master has finally returned from the Supreme Pill Sacred Region. We are willing to go with Sect Master to fight against the dark races. We will die on the battlefield and follow you in life and death. I would rather die standing than waste this life of the Devil Dao. It was the tsunami of cheers that spread across the entire cultivation planet when Ningfan returned. That kind of greeting that was filled with fanatical worship infected Crow Heavenly Dog who was standing beside Ningfan. It howled at the sky and joined in the cheers. Ningfan's silent heart was filled with warmth at this moment. This journey to seek Tao from the East Paradise had always made him feel like he was wandering around. However, at this moment, the 1,000-year sect brought him peace of mind. It made him feel like he wanted to protect the 1,000-year sect. This was his 1,000-year sect. This was his foundation. This was the home that he built with his own hands. After returning to the 1,000-year sect, Ningfan kept in touch with the Slaughter Palace every day. At the same time, he also kept in touch with Xiang Bozi of the Godly Void Pavilion. Zhongyu, Ouyangnuan and Old Wu were all released. All of them went into seclusion in the 1,000-year sect to heal their injuries, cultivate or be busy with other matters. What was worth mentioning was that the sect master of the medicine sect, Wei Wuji, had directly moved the entire cultivation planet of the medicine sect to a place not far away from the 1,000-year sect. After that, the sect had officially merged with the 1,000-year sect and became its subsidiary force. In this way, even if Ouyangnuan comes out from her seclusion, she would cultivate near the 1,000-year sect in the future. She would not be too far away from Ningfan. With the support of the medicine sect's endless supply of pills, the development of the 1,000-year sect would undoubtedly be faster. In the blink of an eye, several months had passed. During these months, the dark races received the news of Ningfan's return, and sent the second letter of challenge to the 1,000-year sect. This time, the letter of challenge only had one simple sentence. The successor of ancient chaos is a scoundrel who shows off. Since you don't dare to fight, you might as well surrender. It was as if it was mocking Ningfan for not immediately going to the dark continent designated by the dark races to accept their challenge after returning to the Eastern Heaven. As for the second letter of challenge, Ningfan just sneered and tore it into pieces. He would definitely accept the challenge from the dark races. The reason why he did not go now was not because he was afraid, but because he had more important things to do. He had no choice but to postpone the battle with the dark races. The matter of ancient chaos was barely resolved. However, there were still other things that had yet to be resolved. Before that, Ning Fan did not have the time to fight the dark races to the death. On the main peak of the Thousand Years sect, a medicinal garden with dense spiritual qi had unknowingly appeared. For a few months, Ning Fan stayed in the medicinal garden without taking a single step out. This medicinal garden was not built by Ning Fan alone. Instead, it was a single entity. If one takes a closer look, they would realize that the medicinal garden itself was actually a low-grade innate magical treasure. Shen-Nong's 100 Herbs Garden. It was a medicinal garden that Ning Fan bought from the Heaven-Reaching sect through the ancient country trading formation. It was specially used to plant the soul seeds of the Sovereign Slayer. Of course, it could also plant some rare plants and spiritual herbs. Its growth speed was 100 times faster than the natural world. Because this treasure was not a processed product, it was sold at a high price. Even with the discount from the VIP card, it still cost Ning Fan more than 100 gold ingots. However, to Ning Fan, who had plundered the entire Supreme Pill Sacred region, 100 gold ingots was not worth mentioning. 3 gold mines and 5 silver mines were kept by Ning Fan in his Flame Incense realm. The Flame Incense realm's people would continuously mine ores from them. When the ores have accumulated to a certain amount, he would personally set up a refining formation to purify them into heavenly Dao gold and silver. Under the large-scale mining, the ores mined every day were enough to be refined into 5 to 6 taels of heavenly Dao gold, and nearly 100 taels of heavenly Dao silver. The income was extremely great. If it is accumulated over time, one could imagine how great the profit would be. The Flame Incense realm's people were changed by Ning Fan. They no longer believed in their former master but Ning Fan, and only Ning Fan. As Ning Fan used both kindness and authority, they gradually gained loyalty. Among the Flame Incense realm's people, some of them were seized from the immortal emperors and immortal kings. Some of them were the descendants of the immortal emperor's disciples that Ning Fan had captured. With these people mining the gold and silver mines day and night, Ning Fan could save himself a lot of trouble. The Dao soil in Shen-Nong's 100 Herb Garden was all supreme-grade Dao soil. A small number of them were bought from the Godly Void Pavilion, while most of them were bought from the Heaven-Reaching sect. Supreme-grade Dao soil was extremely expensive in the Heaven-Reaching sect. 1 square meter of soil would cost 1 to 2 gold ingots. The supreme-grade Dao soil that covered the entire Shen-Nong's 100 Herb Garden had cost Ning Fan more than 400 gold ingots. In the 100 Herb Garden, there was a gurgling stream that watered the plants on both sides. If one were to take a closer look, one would realize that the water of the stream was actually Dao spring of extremely high quality. It was a special stream that was formed under the law of the 100 Herb Garden. Ning Fan planted the 4 Emperor's Arhut pines and the 7 Wonders tree in the 100 Herb Garden. He also planted some precious spiritual herbs that he obtained from the Supreme Pill Sacred region in the garden. One had to admit that the 100 Herb Garden was not a loss. After transplanting them, the pine needle swords of the 4 Emperor's Arhut pines grew longer. The withered branches and leaves of the 7 Wonders tree also recovered their vitality bit by bit. It was all thanks to the 100 Herb Garden. As for the central area of the 100 Herb Garden where the spiritual qi was the densest, Ning Fan did not plant any miscellaneous items. He only planted 2 Huang's soul seed. For several months in a row, Ning Fan had been taking care of his soul seed in the 100 Herb Garden. His expression was solemn as he carefully guarded it. When a tender sprout finally broke through the soil, Ning Fan's solemn expression finally relaxed. He laughed out loud. This tiny tender sprout emitted the qi of Tu Huang's soul. As for the remnant soul of Tu Huang, it was increasing bit by bit along with the growth of the tender sprout. It was recovering bit by bit. At this moment, Ning Fan finally completely believed in Kai Wei's words. As long as he takes good care of this tender sprout, there will be a day when this tender sprout will grow strong and strong. There will be a day when Tu Huang's remnant soul will grow completely. There will be a day when he can meet that woman called Ji Qingling again. As long as there is a day when they can meet again, be it attacking the sacred mountain or invading the underworld territory, none of them will be useless efforts. Instead, they will be meaningful actions that will pay off. A few days later, old Wu Ba sent Ning Fan another piece of good news which made his mood even better. With the many rare repair materials that Ning Fan gave him, Old Wu Ba only spent a few months to repair all the damaged innate magic treasures that Ning Fan lost during the battle in the underworld territory. Even the bottle that was flooded with water was repaired. Even the divine smelting cauldron was repaired. Even the ocean-defying sword was repaired by Old Wu Ba, who was good at repairing magic treasures. As a result, among all of Ning Fan's magic treasures, only the god-exterminating shield was still damaged. It was temporarily lacking the heaven-splitting stone to repair it. It was not something that Old Wu Ba could repair. At the same time, a message from the Slaughter Palace was sent to Ning Fan through a special magic treasure. It was a message from Yao Qingyan, who had been keeping in touch with Ning Fan for the past few months. Ning Fan, I have already done what you asked me to do. The Northern Dipper Blood Realm will be opened again just for you. Do you really have a way to save Tu Huang? The price of opening the Northern Dipper Blood Realm this time is extremely huge. There are many complaints in the palace. If you can't do it, I will try my best to plead for you with the Nether Sea Immortal King. No matter what, I will block the punishment for you. After receiving the message, Ning Fan smiled. The series of good news had put him in a good mood. Now that he replied to Yao Qingyun's message, he no longer suppressed his true feelings. Instead, he teased her. Elder Qingyun, don't worry. I have 90% confidence in prolonging Senior Tu Huang's life. It has been a long time since we last met. Elder Qingyun, have you ever felt lonely? Do you need me to comfort you? Not long after, Yao Qingyun's message came again. That voice transmission was filled with embarrassment and anger. Shut up. There's someone beside me. Don't talk nonsense. I don't need your comfort. In the Slaughter Palace, Yao Qingyun's face turned red with embarrassment. The surrounding elders of the Slaughter Palace were staring at her with strange eyes. This time, the relationship between Yao Qingyun and Ning Fan was completely exposed in front of everyone in the Slaughter Palace. No one would have expected that Elder Qingyun, who had always been indifferent to men, would actually have such an ambiguous relationship with the dignified Rain Lord. Speaking of which, the Rain Immortal Monarch had too many beauties. Xiao Qianxi of the Godly Void Pavilion, Ouyang Yuan of the Medicine Sect, and now, Yao Qingyun, the elder of the main palace. Each of them was a genius among women. How enviable. Wait. I won't allow you to open the Northern Dipper Blood Boundary again. What ability does the Rain Monarch have to save the Palace Master? I don't believe it. We must stop him from acting recklessly. Suddenly, an elderly man in blood-red robes with a ghost mask broke into the palace from outside. He carried a giant sword on his back, and his eyes were filled with arrogance. The moment he broke into the palace, everyone, including the immortal king of the Nether Sea, who was a quasi-emperor realm expert, changed their expressions. In the end, everyone stood up and cupped their fists respectfully towards the elderly man in blood-red robes. Even the immortal king of the Nether Sea was no exception. Subordinate Ming Hai greets the Vice Palace Master. Wasn't the Vice Palace Master in seclusion to break through the 9-5 Great Tribulation of the Immortal Emperor Realm? Why did you suddenly come out? Ming Hai asked with a frown while enduring the heavy aura of the elderly man in blood-red robes. Humph. If I still don't come out, I'm afraid you little fellows would have already pierced the heavens. Pass down my order. Close the Northern Dipper Blood Boundary again. As for Ning Fan, strip him of his identity as a disciple of the Slaughter Palace. If he dares to step into the Blood Sea Star region, he must be expelled from the Slaughter Palace. The elderly man in blood-red robes gave an order that left no room for refusal. The expressions of all the higher-ups of the Slaughter Palace changed drastically when they heard the order. They could not accept it. Ning Fan was not aware of the changes in the Slaughter Palace. After learning that the Slaughter Palace was already prepared to save Shadi, Ning Fan kept the Farmer God's 100-herb garden into the profound Yin world. After giving some instructions to Zhang Yu and the others, he crossed the starry sky and headed to the Blood Sea Star region where the Slaughter Palace was located. Along with him were Crow Tiango, Zhu Er and Old Wu, who had yet to fully recover from his injuries. Black Devil and the puppet He Xiaolian were still living in the profound Yin world. Wherever Ning Fan went, they would follow him. However, they would not stay in the outside world usually. Crow Tiango had just acknowledged Ning Fan as his master. He was a little clingy towards Ningfan. He felt unfamiliar with the entire Eastern Heaven, and was even more afraid of being cursed by some saints. Thus, he did not dare to leave Ningfan's side. This made Ningfan extremely speechless. The curse of the saints in the Supreme Pill Sacred Region seemed to only attack the cultivators of the despicable clan. As for Crow Tiango, who did not have the ability to transform, he was not part of the curse. This was also the reason why in the history of the Supreme Pill Sacred Region, there were always corpse devils and pill devils who could ignore the curse and safely escape from the region. Crow Tiango was purely worrying for nothing. The reason why Zhu Er followed Ningfan was because the saint's will in the Moonlight treasure box had already been used up. That treasure box was just an empty shell that could no longer display any abilities. To Ningfan, it had lost its value. This was the huge price he had to pay for the battle in the underworld. After losing the value of the time reversal, Zhu Er simply flew out of the treasure box and stayed outside to guard Ningfan. He was afraid that he would be killed by the cruel and ruthless Ningfan like a piece of trash after losing his value. One should know that he had offended Ningfan before. Who knew if Ningfan would take revenge on him in the future? Fortunately, even if he was just a spiritual tool, he still had strength that was comparable to an ancient immortal venerate. If he had the opportunity, he could recover to a higher level. Moreover, because he was very good at using illusory attacks, he thought of staying by Ningfan's side in the outside world, to make some contributions and protect himself. Due to these reasons, Ningfan eventually had two lackeys following him, Crow Tiango and Zhu Er. One of them was a dog, and the other was a pig. Then, Old Wu, who claimed to be Ningfan's first loyal servant, had the greatest sense of crisis in his life. He strongly requested to travel with Ningfan. He had a premonition that this pig and dog wanted to threaten his position as Lord Turtle. They wanted to compete with him for his favor. No. I can't slowly go into seclusion to heal my injuries anymore. I must keep a close eye on this malefic star. I can't let this pig and dog steal my position. I'm the first loyal servant of this malefic star. With this thought in mind, Old Wu treated Zhu Er and Crow Tiango with hostility along the way. He was even more respectful and enthusiastic towards Ningfan. It was as if he was willing to climb a mountain of swords and dive into a sea of flames for Ningfan at any time. I see. I should have known this would happen. Master already has a shameless existence who is good at flattering him. No wonder my flattery couldn't move Master at all. Humph. This old turtle is not simple. He's definitely the strongest opponent I've ever met in my life. He's countless times more difficult to deal with than a monkey, a kappa, or a lame horse. And this Tiango. He's also a great enemy. I can't underestimate him just because his cultivation base hasn't entered the eternal era. Zhu Er's expression was also not friendly when he looked at Old Wu and Crow Tiango. He felt a deep sense of crisis. Woof woof woof. Crow Tiango was also vigilant. He had used his life to prove his loyalty to Ningfan. He didn't expect that there would be two other servants competing for his favor. This gradually made him feel a sense of crisis. He could no longer return to the hometown of the Fire Spirit Tower. He could only follow Ningfan until he dies. He must not let anyone take his position away from him. Therefore, the atmosphere between the two of them was filled with a strong smell of gunpowder throughout the journey. This gave Ningfan a headache. He somewhat regretted bringing these three peerless servants along with him. Turtle, pig and dog. Is he going to imitate the stories of the Buddhist scriptures in the mortal world, and go to the Western paradise to obtain Buddhist scriptures? Speaking of which, why did all the servants he received recently change in style? All of them were messy, while only Kegu of the Tai-Su lightning diagram was still considered normal. Otherwise, there would be another brainless sparrow in his team. With the full speed of the Black Immortal Cloud, Ningfan arrived at the Blood Sea Star region from the Thousand Years sect in just a few hours. As soon as he arrived at the border of the Blood Sea Star region, Ningfan frowned. At the moment he flew into the Blood Sea Star region, a group of ghost-faced cultivators stopped him. This is the order of the Vice Palace Lord. The sinner, Ningfan, will be stripped of his identity as a disciple of the Slaughter Palace. He will be expelled from the Slaughter Palace, and will never step into the Blood Sea Star region ever again. If he dares to disobey the order, he will be killed without mercy. The group of ghost-faced cultivators said helplessly. They were unwilling to accept the order to expel Ningfan. They wanted Ningfan to try to save Lord Sha Di. However, they could not disobey the absolute order of the Vice Palace Lord. Inwardly, they could only apologize to Ningfan. We've offended. Senior Rain Lord. Damn you. What did you say? Say it again. Try telling my master that you'll be killed without mercy again. I can't tolerate it. I'm going to kill all of you to wash away my master's humiliation. Without waiting for Ningfan, who was frowning, to express his opinion, Zhu Er had already taken the lead and stood up. His pig-like face was filled with anger, and he pretended to be angry at the group of cultivators of the Slaughter Palace. Old Wu immediately had the urge to curse out loud. Damn it! This damned fat pig had stolen his lines. He was too careless. That you're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.